What is up, everybody? My name is James Blissett, professional sports bettor and founder of Lucrative MMA, which is my handicapping service where I help people make money from betting on MMA. And today, this is the first time I've done this show. We've got 9 guests today, 9 awesome guests. I think you're going to love it. I'm locked in. This is going to be a long show. Since we've got 9 guests, I think I'm going to be going for about 3 hours. You know, I was kind of dropping off the content scene last year, focusing on the gambling, focusing on other things. And I did a couple of pay-per-view breakdowns and I said, do you still want me to do YouTube videos? You know, do you guys like these breakdown videos? Everybody's doing them in the scene these days. It seems like there's a new one popping out on the scene every week. Should I still continue it? And overwhelmingly, I got overwhelming support. You know, everyone was like, yes, come on, continue doing these videos. So I made it a little bit of a resolution to be a little bit more on the content game this year. You asked, I delivered, because this is going to be an epic show. I'm locked in for about 3 hours. I was just saying to my man Bane backstage, which is a special guest we have on kicking off the show. I've got my breakfast smoothie because I had to come prepared. You know, 3 hours locked into the hot seat. I'm going to need some food because I get hungry. I'm a big boy, you know. So yeah, man. Thanks everyone for being here. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Retweet us on Twitter. I want to get a big amount of people in here today. Hopefully we can. We're going to be speaking about every single fight on the UFC 283 card, hopefully. There might be some fights where, you know, we won't speak about. I'm really just going to leave it up to the guests on what fight they want to speak about. We're not going to go from the first fight of the night to the last fight of the night like most podcasts do. This is going to resemble the Fair Play podcast from a man, Z's MMA. Wanted to give him a shout out on here. Most of you will probably know Z's MMA. He used to do a podcast called the Fair Play podcast, hoping it comes back in 2023. But this is going to be similar to that. Just in terms of, I'm going to filter guests in and out. We're going to speak about certain fights on the upcoming card. We're going to debate, discuss. Hopefully there's people that disagree with my picks. Hopefully I disagree with the guest picks, so we can have a little bit of a fun back and forth. And that's basically how the show's going to go. So without further ado, I'm going to bring the first guest on. His name is Ben the Bane Davis. I'm pretty sure you guys know who Ben Davis is. Big MMA personality. I first came across him on Twitter, and hilarious guy. I think the first time I saw him was when he did his Dominic Cruz impressions. I don't know if he's going to bless us with one of those today, but that was definitely a fun video. But yeah, man, Ben Davis, how are you, brother?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Doing well, my man.
Happy to be here. Maybe I'll bust out the cruise. Maybe I'll bring out the Anik. Maybe I'll give you one that I haven't done before. We don't know what's going to happen today.
We don't know, man. Anything can happen. I don't want to put you on the spot, you know, so don't do anything you don't want to do. But I've only got you in here for 15, 20 minutes, you know. I would like to have you in here for an hour and talk about, you know, all things fights, because there is a lot of things I want to speak to you about, not just fights. But we've only got 15, 20 minutes since I have got 9 guests. So, you know, short and sweet, we'll get you in and out. First thing I did want to ask you, though, because you kind of blown up on the Twitter scene and even the YouTube, just the MMA personality media scene in general, right? And I know you have some media credentials now, so congratulations. I want to know how you came on the scene, you know, not how you got into MMA, but how did you come on the scene? Because as I mentioned, I first saw you on Twitter when you did the Dominic Cruz impressions, and that video sort of went viral. So was it just one video that went viral and then you kind of took off, or because I know you got your account banned as well before?
Yes,
just
I am on my.
How you went. Yeah, go on.
I'm on my 3rd Twitter account. Let's hope that this is the last time I have to reset. There was a John Anik impression video that predicated the Dominic Cruz one, and that one garnered a lot of attention. And I was able to ride that wave of momentum a little bit. And then the Cruz one came probably like 4 months after that. But it's just kind of a combination of, you know, consistency, right? Like I was doing a lot of Bellator media days back in the day, and putting those videos up and just trying to develop relationships with their PR teams and just getting opportunities through that. It's networking. You know what I mean? Like I've got a finance degree. Right. I'm not really a sports journalism guy. I'm not credentialed in that manner, right? So I'll never call myself a journalist, but I was like, you know, these credentials are kind of open to anybody. With Bellator, with PFL, with regional scenes, they are looking for more exposure and more promotion and marketing. So if you can give that to them, then, you know, it's a scratch your back, you scratch mine type situation. And I think on Twitter, the direct kind of engagement that you have with fighters and with people is just, that's what lured me in, and why I've kind of been trying to stay on that platform as much as possible. And thankfully it's been working out.
Yeah. Congrats again, man. So that's a lesson for anybody listening here. You know, there's obviously a lot of people that listen to me who are gamblers, but there's also a lot of people who listen to me who just love MMA. And so anybody who wants to get out in the MMA scene, Ben is basically saying it's open for you on the regional scene, at least. The Bellator credentials, PFL credentials, you can get involved in them just by sending a DM, whatever, networking. And Ben is somebody who is just who basically just shows you, you know, hard work, personality, showing your personality. People are afraid to show their personality on camera. I think that's something that can get you very far in this world, especially in 2023, you know, this modern age. Hard work, dedication, networking, and you can make it in this life, you know. So anybody watching now, they can definitely take something away from what you just said. But without further ado, let's get into this card, man, because this is a UFC 283 card, pay-per-view. This is a solid card, first pay-per-view of the year. I'm actually really excited for this card, but I'm a bit of a UFC nerd, you know. I'm excited for almost any card they ever put out. There's a lot of people who complain about cards, right? Like, oh, this is a bad card. I'm not one of those people for two reasons. First of all, because I'm a gambler, and anytime they give me an opportunity to make money, I'm happy with it. I don't care. If you give me odds on Trump versus Biden, I'm going to see if there's an angle on how I can play it and win some money, right? So I never
That's such a degenerate personality.
At the end of the day, brother, you could call me a degenerate, but if it's earning me money, I'm happy to be a degenerate. You know what I mean? So for sure. I am a bit of a degenerate, but if there's an angle to play, I'm always looking for it. So there's definitely some angles on this card. As I said, 15 fights. Is there any fight you want to touch on specifically, or should I just pick one off the board?
I'll kick it off with, and once again, I'm not a handicapper by any stretch of the imagination. I do love betting. It's always in small quantities because I'm operating on a college student bankroll. But I don't pretend to be that sophisticated or successful of a capper. But we're going to kick it off with Paul Craig and Johnny Walker. Now, here's the thing. I feel Craig is a bit underrated. His striking has never really evolved past very surface level dimensions. But absolute monster on the ground. Once people fall into the trap of the guard, it's typically game over. And with Johnny Walker's unbelievably low fight IQ, I just can't imagine that Mr. Inconsistency himself is going to be able to best Paul Craig in this outing. I feel he's 2 in his last 6, and he's not looked fantastic in those wins. I mean, the Ryan Spann one, Spann had him dead to rights, and Johnny Walker was able to capitalize on Spann's negative fight IQ. Now, the Iwan Kudalaba win, that's a solid one. But again, 2 in your last 6, one of those wins being a bit disputed. I'm trusting the Bear Jew in this one. I think he's going to bounce back in a big way with a finish. Inside the distance, plus 215 for my man, Paul Craig.
Yeah, so first of all, anytime you get Paul Craig to finish inside the distance at like plus 215, you know, it could be an auto bet for me as a gambler just because he can sub anyone. He subbed the past, Magomed Ankalaev, and the future, Jamal Hill, UFC light heavyweight champion. Now, obviously, that's a little bit of a segue on what I'm talking about, the Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill fight on Saturday. But he can sub anyone, right? Anytime someone's subbing Ankalaev and subbing Jamal Hill, you have to sit back and give him credit, especially for the Ankalaev one. You know what I mean? Especially after he was being beat down for 3 rounds and did it with 1 second left on the clock. That's a legendary fight. For me, though, this fight, it's tough to break down because, like you said, Johnny Walker doesn't have great fight IQ. Paul Craig is a guard puller, right? So he doesn't have great wrestling. He doesn't get many takedowns, and he doesn't really have good striking. So I find it almost impossible to say Paul Craig's going to win on the feet here. It's not going to happen. Johnny Walker knocks him out if it stays on the feet. So you're basically banking on Paul Craig getting the fight to the ground. Now, is he going to be able to do that? Maybe. For me, it's just a lottery ticket. I might as well flip a coin to guess whether Paul Craig is going to be able to pull Johnny Walker into that crazy guard of his. Because there's been many, many fights now of Paul Craig's where we think it's going to go one way and it's gone the other way. He's just a weird type, janky fighter, you know. When he fought Volkan Ozdemir, everybody and their mama had money on the fight to end inside the distance, the fight to end under 2.5 rounds, under 1.5 rounds, and it goes to a decision, you know. I'm pretty sure it went to a decision, or it went late, if not, right? And that was because of Volkan Ozdemir, right? He didn't go into the guard of Paul Craig. Now, is Johnny Walker going to go into the guard of Paul Craig? That's basically what this fight comes down to, in my opinion, right? Is Johnny Walker going to play smart anytime Paul Craig flops to his back, step away, let the ref bring him back to the feet and try and knock him out on the feet? Or is he going to be stupid, hurt him, jump straight into the guard and get subbed? For me, it's so hard to predict that I'm just completely passing on the fight. But look, anytime Paul Craig is 215 inside the distance, like I said, I understand it. I'm a degenerate. We've just admitted that on the first, at the start of the show. But
I was going to say, you can't claim a degenerate status and then go, I'm going to pass. That's a pussy move, Lucrative.
It's true, man. But the name of the game is making money, so sometimes I have to steer away from my degenerate personality, man. But yeah, for sure. Ben has got Paul Craig inside the distance. Hopefully it cashes for you, because as I said, I don't have any bets on this fight. So hopefully it cashes for you. So we'll speak about like one more fight, Ben, and then I'll get the next guest in. Anyone you want to talk about?
For sure. We'll keep this one short and sweet. A little bit on the prelims, of course. We've got Terrence McKinney, T-Rex, taking on Ismail Bonfim. Now, Bonfim, has a better record, 18-3 to the 13-4 of Terrence McKinney. But, man, every time Terrence is inside the octagon, it is nothing short of a spectacle, fireworks anticipated. And, I mean, when anybody knocks down Drew Dober multiple times, I think that is just a massive statement to the power that he possesses. Fastest KO in the lightweight division against Matt Frivola, who, again, I love the steamroller, but man, McKinney is powerful. I don't think Ismail Bonfim is going to come into this one and have a ton of success, because, right, you talk about the decisions that Bonfim likes to do, right? That requires a very multifaceted approach. McKinney's multifaceted. He's got some serious wrestling credentials under guys like Michael Chiesa and others out there. And I think they were Gophers or something like that, Lucrative. I'm not sure what the mascot to college was, but all I know, Terrence is well-rounded at -125. I'm gonna snipe that one on the prelims.
Yeah, this is a hard fight for me, just because, again, similar to Johnny Walker, Terrence McKinney is a volatile fighter. We use that word a lot in gambling. Volatile means we don't really know what's going to happen to him. Sorry, Ben.
But there's an asterisk. It's unpredictable because that was a short notice fight his last time out, right? You know what I mean? Didn't have the time for preparation. This is full camp McKinney. I think there's less volatility involved with an individual who has the amount of time to prep properly.
Okay, I understand what you mean, but let me ask you this question. Let me throw this one back at you. Do you think, and speaking about the comment here, if Bonfim survives the first 3.5 minutes, he wins that fight. Do you think Terrence McKinney is basically a round one fighter, meaning that if he doesn't win in round one, he's not going to win the fight?
I think he is a round one fighter, but that means that he also has another 90 seconds of additional time that DXG say is not accounting for. I think that first 5 is going to be tough, okay? 3.5? Let's give him the full 5, boys. Come on.
Yeah. No, I feel you. And so I feel like in this spot, if you do want to play McKinney, just play McKinney inside the distance. I mean, I haven't actually looked at the odds, and I'm going to bring them up now because sometimes there's no point. The odds are very closely together. There's no difference. But McKinney in round one is almost always going to be a better play than McKinney money line, just because we usually get a decent price for that round one prop. I remember the cat wasn't out of the bag when he fought for SCM, and I played Terrence McKinney in round one for something insane, like plus 1,000. And I also played him submission plus 1,100, which when you look back on it, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if Terrence McKinney was fighting Francis Ngannou and they gave me plus 1,000, I probably would play it, because that motherfucker in the first 5 minutes can finish anyone.
Just decimate people.
He can finish anyone. And yeah, man. All right, he's going for Terrence McKinney, but Ben Davis and Terrence McKinney, they're kind of boys. So you have to take Ben's. You have to take that with a grain of salt.
I'm a little biased. But, I am a little biased. You are correct.
All right. Well, listen, man. It's been lovely having you on. Again, as I said, I want to speak to you for an hour or so. Maybe in the future we can do that. But yeah, thanks again for coming on, brother. I wish you continued success. Everybody go and follow Ben Davis if you haven't already. I'm sure everybody is, though. But yeah, man, thanks again. And hopefully we can do this at some point in the future.
Thank you for the time. I'll talk to you soon, Lucrative.
Bye, my man. There we go. That was Ben Davis. Shout out to Ben. I'm going to get the other guest in now because we've got a lot of guests. And by the way, boys, I have not done this before, right? I haven't done this type of rolling in and out guest format. And there's a lot to do behind the scenes. Like I'm trying to speak to Ben and at the same time send messages to other people to get them to confirm their time, get them to come in at a specific time. So just bear with me, boys, right? Just bear with me a little bit. So I'm just going to send a link out now to my next guest. And look, I know some people are talking a little bit of shit in the chat. Don't talk any bullshit in the chat about just moaning and complaining, because I'm going to have to block you, because we don't want no negativity in the chat. You know, that's not really how we do it out here. So just relax yourself, boys. Come on. I'm bringing a 3-hour podcast to you where we're breaking down fights with 9 guests. Be a little bit respectful, yeah? All right. Now I got my man. You're going to like the next guest. He's a fighter. Very good fighter as well. And we'll break down that in a minute. So Terence is going with Paul Craig and Terence McKinney. 2 fights that I want nothing to do with just because of the volatility in those fights. You know, I was thinking heavily about playing Terence McKinney under 1.5 rounds at -200, just because it's like, it's such a high likelihood of happening in any one of Terence McKinney fights. You know, he mainly always finishes the fight inside the first round. And if not, he usually gets finished himself, which has happened against Drew Dober and Sean Woodson now. But obviously, we don't know how Bonfim's going to react to that. We know Terence McKinney's going to come out like a lunatic, but I feel like Bonfim might be smart. And, you know, I take it back to the Beverly Hills Ninja fight against Dusko Todorovic. I have a lot of money on, or I had a lot of money on the under 1.5 rounds in that fight, the Beverly Hills Ninja versus Dusko. And that was like, it was a bit juiced. It was like -200 or -170 or something, right? And that fight just went over 1.5 rounds by like 30 seconds or a minute or something. And that just reminds me of the Terence McKinney fight. You know, at some point, someone's going to be smart, take him down, put him up against the cage, get him tired, and it is going to go over 1.5 rounds. I do think it's going under 1.5, but at -200, I don't have a massive want to play it. I was going to, but as I said. All right, what else we got? I'm just waiting for my next guest here. I don't know if he is available right now, but what other fights we're going to speak about? Let's speak about this Josiane Nunes versus Zara Fern fight. The reason I'm going to speak about this is because I don't think anybody's going to want to speak about this fight, and I don't really want to speak about it, but I kind of want to leave the other fights for me and the guest to debate, so I don't really want to speak about it, but Josiane Nunes is like a -600 favorite. This is an absolutely insane line on first glance, right? You wouldn't think Josiane Nunes should be a -600, 550 favorite, whatever it is, against anybody in the UFC or anybody with a UFC contract. I was actually hoping and praying I could fade her at +400. I like Josiane Nunes. I don't think she's a bad fighter. I've bet on her before. I actually bet on her to knock out Romana Pascal, which was really frustrating because she basically knocked her out twice and the ref didn't stop it. I just don't think she deserves to be a -500. She's not that type of fighter. She can't really cover that line unless she's getting a knockout, in my opinion, for most of the time anyway. So I go into Zara Fern tape, and I realize that Zara Fern is basically 40 years old. She's almost 40. She's 39 years old. She's a very tall fighter, but she's extremely robotic in her stance. Even though she's +400 in a low-level women's MMA fight, I still can't play her. I think Josiane Nunes is going to land bombs. I think the overhand left hook, right hook even is going to be there 24/7. I really want to fade Josiane Nunes at +400, but I can't do that here. John Kelly, shout out to John. He's saying first time they were booked for Nunes' debut in 2021, she was only -125. Well, that would have been the bet of a lifetime, in my opinion, because I'm talking about +400 and I still can't back it. It's really annoying. I really want to play it. I just don't see a way where Zara Fern's going to be able to get out of the way of the hooks, even though she has like a 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, reach advantage. She has a massive reach advantage, and I still don't think she's going to be able to utilize it, especially since she's been away from the octagon for 3 years now. That's just a really bad sign. You know, if she was fighting regularly, maybe you make her +200 or something. You know, plus 200, it's not out of the realm of possibility that that is the true line. But since she's been out for 3 years, I mean, Nunes has been getting knockdowns. Nunes has been active. Maybe you do bump it up to plus 400, you know. I'm trying to string out this breakdown as we wait for our next guest because I don't have much to say about this one, but I'm trying to string it out. Any questions for me? Any questions that you want me to answer? Because I'll answer some as we wait for our next guest. Elvis saying, funny you mentioned the Dusko fight. I took Dusko there and playing Bonfim on the same principle. He thinks Bonfim survives the early onslaught and then drags Terence McKinney to deep waters. Yeah, I mean, I understand it, you know. I completely understand it. For me, I just mostly want to stay away from Terence McKinney fights, you know, as I mentioned, just because of that volatility. But Bonfim looks like a solid guy. He looks like he's got a good chin. He looks like he's got good upside in the division. He looks smart, good fight IQ. You know, there's not too much I can say about Bonfim, but I mean, Terence McKinney is absolute lunatic. I think he can finish anyone, like I said. So I'm not going to play it myself, but good luck to you. Prince of Mish just saying, what am I drinking? So this is a glass of mud. It's really important to be connected to the earth. You know, I'm a big believer in grounding and Mother Earth. So if you drink mud, I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually good for you. Connected to Mother Earth and all that. What else we got? If you want to kill some time, talk about Ngannou or James Krause. Yeah, Francis Ngannou, what can I say? UFC dropped the ball. I mean, UFC should have just paid him what he wanted, honestly. Not much to say about that one. I mean, yeah, I believe UFC should have paid him what he wanted. I mean, obviously it depends. You know, if the guy's asking for like 20 million each fight, then no. I'd like to know the number. It's funny because in a lot of other sports, you know the numbers of things, but when it comes to MMA, we never really know the numbers of stuff. So I like to know what that number was because there is always a number. You know, UFC dropped the ball, but if Francis Ngannou is asking for 20 million every fight, then the UFC didn't drop the ball. You know what I mean? They didn't drop the ball. So I feel like judgment should be reserved until we know the number. It really comes down to the number he was asking for and the conditions of the contract and stuff. But someone made a good point on Twitter. I think it was Magic M on Twitter. I saw his post comes up on my timeline and he said, if Francis Ngannou would have beat John Jones, knocked him out, he would have been superstar, Mike Tyson level, something like that. And that's true. That's true. If he would have signed the contract, obviously he was going to get paid a lot. Obviously the UFC offered him a decent amount. Wasn't as much as he wanted, but it would have still been a good amount since they was negotiating for 2 years. If he did come back and fought John Jones, which he would have, if he would have knocked out John Jones, that is instant stardom. That is more stardom than he was, and he probably would have got paid a lot more in his next fight from pay-per-view points. So, you know, there is an argument to say that Francis Ngannou kind of should have just bit his lip, bit his tongue, fought against John Jones, try to knock him out, and then become a superstar. But men have principles, men have morals, and at the end of the day, man, it's not all about money. It's not all about stardom. It's about principles and morals, and that's something I can completely respect. And I don't know the ins and outs of the situation, but from what I hear a little bit, he did stick by his principles, morals. He didn't think the UFC were a good brand, didn't think the UFC treated him respectfully. And if he's standing by his principles and morals, shout out to him, man, because that's something as a man that everybody should do. You know what I mean? So that's it. There's two sides to every story, guys. You know what I mean? People like always want to make the world black and white, and the world is full of nuance. You know what I mean? So there's not one way to look at anything. What else we got? I can't tell if you're joking. Yes, I was actually joking, guys. That's that British humor. I mean, it looks like mud, though, isn't it? So that's why I said it. It looks like mud. This is a Balkan smoothie. So, I mean, this has got like 3 eggs in it. This has got tons of shit in it. This has got, I don't know, protein powder, oats, banana, spinach. It's got lots of stuff in it. I want to gain a little bit of weight. I'm 210 pounds right now, but I'm 6'4", so that's not massive at 6'4". I want to gain a little bit of weight. So, you know, that's what this smoothie's helping me with. And it's easy to eat while I'm live on stream. All right. So look, I don't know what happened to the guest, but he's obviously not coming in. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the next guest. So who is the next guest? Okay, so we'll move on to the next guest. If he's available. If not, I'm just going to kill some time by talking about something else. So I'm just going to send a message to the next guest and see if we can get him in it. All right, so I've sent a message to our next guest. So we'll see if we can get him in here. Shout out to Francis Ngannou, a real G. Sean is saying, I think Ngannou walked on principle regarding independent contractor restrictions and healthcare. Yeah, I mean, shout out to him because I do feel like they should have healthcare. You know, look, I don't know the ins and outs, so I don't want to talk too in depth about it. People have big opinions when they don't really know about stuff. And actually, something that is, something that you can do in life, and that's very important in my opinion, is to say, I don't know enough about the subject to speak on it. Everybody has a massive opinion on everything these days, everything. And they don't know about anything. The thing about me is I'm confident in what I know, but I also am humble enough to understand I don't know shit about the world, So I don't know the in-depth contract restrictions and healthcare and stuff like that. I don't really know. I know that the UFC pays for medical bills from injuries that have occurred in fights, which is good. But I don't know. I think once you leave the UFC, they don't pay healthcare. But what about if an injury that you had in a fight was a recurring injury 10 years after you left the company? Then do they pay for it? I don't really know, So I don't really like to go in depth about things I don't know about. So what else we got? So we got PN talking absolute bollocks here. So we're going to put this user in. Yeah, we'll just block the user, man. And you'll just block forever now because I'm never going to check this because I don't go on my YouTube chat and that. So I'm not going to check this again. So now we got the other guest backstage, as I can see. So I'm going to bring him in right now. Let me just see what's going on. Okay. So the next guest we have is MMA fighter, serious MMA fighter as well, Jeremy Kennedy. I think he's deep in camp right now. So thanks for coming on, Jeremy, if you're deep in camp. How are you doing right now, brother?
I'm good, man. Yes, I am right deep in camp. We're about 5.5 weeks out now.
Damn. And I'll ask you the thing everybody's probably asked you. How's it going? Are you feeling good? Is it your best camp ever? All of that shit. I'm going to just say it just because it's the thing to do.
I'm in the best shape of my life. Training camp's going smooth. All the same answers too.
Yeah, I feel you, man.
Go, man. I think this is a perfect fight for me. Good stylistic matchup. And yeah, I've just been steady training since the last one. So
awesome. And your last one was a big one, man. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the biggest of your career because, you've been in a lot of big fights. You fought the champ, Alexander Volkanovski. You've been around the block, UFC, PFL, Bellator, all of that. So you've had a lot of big fights. But yeah. You fought Aaron Pico last time out. That was a massive fight. I would assume there was a lot of media around that fight just because of how hyped up Aaron Pico was. I want to ask you, like, in terms of that fight, just because it was your last fight, did it feel any different from your other fights? Or are you of the mentality that every fight's the same? I'm just going to go in there and fight. Or was it a little bit more added pressure because of, the stardom of Aaron?
Yeah, there wasn't any added pressure. It was definitely like big fight feels though. Like a lot more interview requests, a lot more media days, fight week, a lot more obligations to take care of and whatnot. But I was just like, I think mature wise, I've just kind of grown, and I was so ready for that one that I was just embracing it all and enjoying the process and wasn't nervous, nothing. Even though it was like, he's a dangerous guy, and scary highlight reel and whatnot. I wasn't even worried about any of that, and not ideal the way the fight went, but I mean the whole first round is what I planned on doing, the whole fight. So it is, and you can't control those things. And then it's just funny that it happened again, a couple weeks after with TJ and Aljo, and just one of those things, But I'm just moving on now, and yeah, this next one is going to be for the title shot. So it's a lot on the stake again. So it's another big fight, another It's going to be a co-main event, so I'm sure I'm going to be seeing a lot of the same things as I did the last time when I get out there for fight week. Just a lot of obligations and whatnot. So sorry about that.
Yeah, man. That's awesome to hear, bro. And I wish you success on that fight, of course. So we'll touch on the UFC 283 fights today. As I said, I'd honestly like to speak to you for half an hour, 45 minutes or something like that. But maybe we can do that in the future. Today we're going to be speaking about the fights. I did want to ask you one question though, man, because you have reached, virtually the pinnacle of the sport in MMA, right? As I said, you've been around the block. You've fought the best fighters in a lot of organizations. So you've reached virtually the pinnacle of the sport. And anytime I speak to somebody who has excelled to this degree, in any realm, any endeavor that they choose, I like to see the mindset that got them there, right? So to my viewers and audience who want to make it in life, in any endeavor, what is something that you can credit to your success? It could be anything, but what is something that you could credit to your success?
Biggest thing is consistency, man. Like a lot of times I would think like these one-off sessions, do they really matter? But the crumb trail, it all adds up at the end. Every little extra thing, extra reps in the gym, extra round. I'm trying to, every little piece, it all adds up to to the end. So I just think staying true. And then if you're trying to break into the MMA scene, biggest thing is experience, compete at everything, like this is just strictly MMA. Like if you're kind of you should be competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments, getting your ass kicked in boxing matches, kickboxing matches, wrestling, everything, just all that experience builds up for when you do jump into the MMA, so, and then life in general, consistency, like just every single day working towards that dream that you have. And it will pay off in some sort, in some form, and then for me, it kind of brought me all along the world and all the different promotions, and that settled right into Bellator. And this is, happy where I'm at. Money's really good. I love the position I'm in, the division. So so.
That's awesome, man. And you're testament to that, consistency. And one thing my viewers can take away from this is like, life is boring sometimes. And any successful person, you ask them, how have you got here? They all say the same thing: consistency, hard work. It's boring, man. It's not exciting, People always want a magic pill, but at the end of the day, champions, people that are successful, they're built on just doing the same things every single day, and then, eventually you're going to make it. So thanks for sharing your mindset on that one, brother, because that's definitely important. So without further ado, let's speak about this card, because this is a banger of a card. 15 fights on UFC 283. You touched on a couple of the fights in the DMs with me. Should we speak about the Moreno and Figgy one? Would you be down for that?
Yeah, I like that one. It's a hard one, man. The first time, right? 4 fights. Between 2 fights. And the story is unique, how it's 1-1-1. But I mean, on paper it's 1-1-1. But if you really break down the rounds by rounds, Figueiredo's kind of, proven he was not the better fighter. I don't know how to quite word it, but I mean, outside of that point deduction, that first fight, arguably he won on the scorecards, and then the last one he won on the scorecards, and then it was just the finish where I don't think he showed up, where his inconsistencies kind of showed there, where gamer, and he's every single time he's going to show up and he's going to fight for your money,
Yeah, it's true. I feel like the second fight that you just mentioned there, I actually do believe Figueiredo when he said he had a really bad weight cut, his mind wasn't there, because it's very rare where, especially as a gambler, where we have so much data to go on in a future fight. So we've got 13 rounds that these guys have fought, right? Which almost never happens when you're betting on MMA or watching a fight. And the first fight and the third fight, those were really close fights. The first fight, in my opinion, Figueiredo won 4-1, whatever. You can say 3-2 with a point deduction. It was still a close fight. Brandon Moreno still did well. That was 2-3 years ago when Figgy was in his prime as well, so it's a little bit different. The second fight is the anomaly, right? Like the first and third fight were close. The second fight was the anomaly. So I do actually believe him when he said he had a bad weight cut. So I don't really think we're going to see that show up again. He seems like he's got his weight down now. As I said to you on the DMs, I actually have a bet on Brandon Moreno this time out. And the reason I've done that, I feel like the fight's extremely close, right? I think anytime these guys fight in the future, it's probably going to be lined -110 apiece, right? Pick them. But I just feel like Figueiredo's getting older now. He's left fight ready. Yeah, he's getting older. He's left fight ready. In my opinion, Figueiredo peaked about 2 years ago, and he's actually going downhill now. He's about 35, 36 years old now. So he's getting on for an MMA fighter, especially in the flyweight division. Exactly. Yeah. In that weight class, younger fighters often do a little bit better. So, I feel like he's kind of dropping off a little bit. He's still an amazing fighter. And I actually think Brandon Moreno hasn't seen his peak yet. In my opinion, he's getting better and better. So for that reason, and a few other things, he outlands him every fight and stuff like that. But that's why I've backed Brandon Moreno here. So we'll see how it goes, man. Do you have a bet on the fight, or are you just going to steer clear and say, you know what, it's a close fight, I'm not going to bet on it?
Yeah, I'm not going to bet on it, but for me, I would go, if I had to pick a way, I would go Moreno by decision. I think I don't get Figueiredo out of there, but I do think he outlands him, and I think the pace will slow down, and Moreno can keep it up the whole time. And then with the age factor, with Figgy, it's just you don't know it because his last fight was Moreno, but that was quite a while ago. Moreno's had one. And he's just, I just think momentum and everything is going on Moreno's side on this one right now.
So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we're both right, because obviously I want to cash my ticket.
Funny.
What was the other fight that you mentioned you want to speak about? There was one, right?
I like the Burns and Magny fight, but then I Cody Stamen. I didn't realize that it was this weekend. That's the big obviously he's on the undercard there, and he's been training pretty hard for that fight, and it's kind of like a dark horse kind of fight, that I can't remember his opponent's name, Lacerda. Yep. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what we've heard from all the Brazilians, around in Vegas in general, that they know this guy he's like a phenom on the ground, like the Demian Maia on the ground, and then look at his record, and he's got a bunch of submissions. But then now jumping into the deep end of the bantamweight division of, in the UFC with Stamen, who's got tons of experience, and, stylistically, that's a tough fight for any kind of jiu-jitsu guy who's expected back, So that fight's just stuck out to me, just because I got, I'm biased, of course, Cody's a teammate, but that fight I'm forward to, just because of the stylistic clash of these two. Cody hits hard. He's going to want to keep it on the feet because he won't want to use his wrestling, but he's going to use his wrestling for, takedown defense sort of. So to see this, and I always love like those savvy submission specialist guys. They're to watch regardless. So that's another fight I wanted to touch on. But
so on that fight, I actually have a position against your boy Cody Stamen, because it's my smallest bet of the card, but I did chuck a little bit on Luan Lacerda. So he's actually like plus 275, right? Which is,
I know that
it's a big price tag. It's a big price tag, right? Cody Stamen is not the type of guy you want to make your UFC debut against. I mean, the guy is so consistent. You never really see Cody Stamen go in there and have a poor fight. Like we speak about Figgy in the second fight. He didn't look good in that fight.
Yeah.
But Cody Stamen is someone that always shows up in shape. He always... I think he may have tough weight cuts, I don't know, but he definitely shows up in shape, willing to go a hard 3 rounds. He's always consistent. So I don't like to bet against a fighter like that, someone who doesn't really have many holes in his game, good striker, great wrestler, good jiu-jitsu. Like, he doesn't have many holes in his game. But just from me, I see Lacerda being extremely dynamic with his submission skills. So I feel like he can finish from any position. If Cody does wrestle, which I don't expect him to do, but he's a wrestler at heart, right? So when you get a fighter who just wrestles from a young kid, oftentimes they do wrestle even when they maybe should just keep it standing. I think like Cody has good fight IQ, right? Yeah, I think Cody has good fight IQ, and he won't. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he shoots a takedown or 2 in 15 minutes. So if he does, I think he's going to be in danger. I think his neck's going to be in danger. Lacerda was also a main training partner of Jose Aldo for a long time, and really for me, it all comes down to the line, because I wouldn't bet Lacerda at -110. I would actually bet on Cody Stamann. So I'm picking Cody Stamann to win. And this is something we do as gamblers, you know. I'm picking Cody Stamann to win the fight, but I'm actually betting against Cody Stamann just because of the odds, right? Because MMA is so crazy. You never know what.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's what we do, you know.
On that.
Sorry, bro.
That I didn't know the lines on that. That's I knew he was a favorite, but I didn't know he was a big favorite. But that makes me happy. You know, I think regardless that fight doesn't go the distance, I would bet at the distance.
Well, that's a big price as well. That's really big. I think it's like +200 if it doesn't go the distance, or even bigger. And so I was going to bet that myself as well, as sort of a hedge, because I do think Cody, if the guy's not getting his wrestling going, he may just collapse under the pressure of a UFC veteran like Cody, you know. So we'll see, man. Yeah,
so we'll see. I definitely like that though, Cody by knockout, or there's going to be a submission there, but I don't think it goes the distance. And on it too, so I might have to sprinkle some money on that one.
Yeah, I agree. Then you're not betting against Cody. You're just betting on the fight to finish, and you can pray for a Cody knockout, you know?
Yes, sir.
Well, listen, man, I've got a couple of other guests coming in, so I'm going to bring them in now. But I really appreciate you coming on, bro. And I definitely appreciate you sharing your mindset, where you spoke about consistency as well, because I feel like a lot of people need to hear that stuff, you know? So thanks for that, brother. Hopefully we can do another chat in the future and speak a little bit more in depth. Maybe when I don't have 9 guests on, maybe just 1 or 2, and we can speak for a little bit longer. But yeah, man, I wish you success coming up in the future in your fight. And I'm going to be rooting from you from now on for sure.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Anytime, just reach out.
Okay. Take care, Jeremy. Bye, mate. Okay. So that was Jeremy Kennedy, man, fighting for the belt in Bellator soon. So hopefully everyone can go and follow him on Twitter, follow him on Instagram and all that. Obviously, he seems like a really nice guy. You can just tell. Seems like a genuine guy. That's the first time I spoke to him. But anytime I speak to someone who's reached the pinnacle of any endeavor, instantly I have respect for them. And especially, you know, when they share their mindset to how they got us to the top. They got to the top like that. So I think he's fighting in February. I'm just going to check now. Bellator, when is it? Yeah, so it's the 25th of February in a co-main event, Bellator, on the Amosov and Storley card, which that's going to be a great fight, Amosov versus Storley, because both of those guys are motherfucker wrestlers. But I'm not just going to talk any more, because we got a very special guest waiting at the back. It's my man, Narco Cop. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
What is up, buddy? How you doing? Man, that really nice guy, man. This guy seems like he's Jeremy Kennedy. Seems like a really good dude.
Yeah, you can just tell sometimes when you have a chat with someone, you know, you could tell someone's quite genuine, you know. Who knows? I don't know, but like it seems like he was. Sorry to keep you waiting at the back. Jeremy, he's meant to come on like 10 minutes earlier, and then he came, and when you have 9 guests, it's a bit of a struggle, man. So I don't mean to keep you waiting. And he was only there for 5 minutes or something, but apologies for that, mate.
All good, all good. No big deal.
So you're here now. So there is something I wanted to ask you, Narco, because, you know, I got 9 guests on today, and I'm kind of asking everyone a little bit of different things. I just want to know, you personally, what your plans for the year are in terms of betting, and then just anything else you want to share, you know, even if you have anything going on outside gambling, any entrepreneurial activities. I know you're big on you was big, I'm not sure if you still do it, on the Amazon. What was it? Was it drop shipping on Amazon? And I mean, we can speak about that, you know, 2 or 3 minutes if you want to. But just what your plans for the year, man? Gambling, how much do you want to earn? Are you going to focus more on the regional scene? Like just anything this year that you want to do entrepreneurial wise to make money.
I mean, I'm still in the Amazon business. I do the FBA stuff. No drop shipping for me, but right now I'm at a point where I'm doing it. It's kind of automated. I have like a couple of VAs that work for me, virtual assistants. They basically know what to order for me. It goes to a prep center. From prep center, it goes to Amazon. So I really don't do much at this point. Kind of automated it after like almost 3 years now. So I got the hang of it, but you still have to respond to a lot of stuff that Amazon asks you for here and there. It's always something they need. So yeah, I mean, that's been going really good. You know, I started doing content once a week for Stochastic, Odd Shopper, they're called.
I saw that.
It's a big DFS company. So I'm going to be doing once a week, just a recorded video of 3 plays that I like for each card, whether it be UFC, Bellator, whatever. As far as my plans for 2023, honestly, I don't want to put numbers towards plans. I don't think, because I'll say this, I've played poker all my life, and with poker, there's a lot of variance. Okay. With betting, there's a lot of variance. So I've learned this already from years of playing poker, that you never want to say, oh, I want to make 100,000 this year, right?
Yeah.
Because there's variance, and that expectation might just not come, right?
Yeah.
I want to do the best I can do. That's what I tell myself. I want to make the least amount of mistakes when I play poker, right? Because outcomes are going to come when you make the least amount of mistakes, right? It just is. It's math. It's whatever it may be, right? So the same thing with MMA betting right now. I don't want to, put a blind eye to some things, like for instance, last week, plus 700 or 650 or whatever Barcelos was, right? Do I think the price was right? No, I honestly didn't think Barcelos, as good as he is at his level, right? He's a probably close to top 15 fighter in his prime. Obviously, he's not probably in his prime anymore, but he looked great his last fight, right? He totally tore up Trevin Jones for the most part.
Yeah.
Now, my old self, I would say, 650, it's Barcelos. Chuck a unit on him. Why not? I didn't. Because when I watched the tape, it was hard for me to find a path for victory for Barcelos, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't find the path. Is he going to knock out Umar? Is he going to close the distance? We haven't seen that. It's very hard to close the distance. Is he going to be able to defend takedowns? Okay, maybe. But he's never faced a guy that wrestles as good as Umar, right? So things like that, right? James, I stayed away bets like that. I'm trying to focus more on, if I'm finding value in a fighter, then I need to find paths for the fighter. Like, I need to find a path of victory. And it can't be like very, very slim. So with Barcelos, it was like, honestly, a very, very, very slim chance that I saw this guy like maybe landing some, haymaker or something. But outside of that, I just didn't see him winning this fight. So.
Yeah. And you touched on a lot of good points there, man. And that is something that we have to take into account. Like, it's funny because there's this sort of, I want to call it group think. There's just this type of think on MMA Twitter and YouTube, which is where we usually reside when we're talking about MMA, that as soon as you see plus 500, it's an auto bet for a fighter. But you have to actually break down what that means, right? If you see a plus 600, or plus 400, for example, because I was speaking about Josiane Nunes versus Zara Fern a little bit earlier. Pained me to speak about it, but I was. And Zara Fern is plus 400, right? Let's say that was Barcelos, he was plus 400, whatever. He was 600 the other day. As soon as you see plus 400, you're like, okay, I'm instantly playing Barcelos. But just take a step back from every other person tweeting, how is Barcelos 400? The line's crazy. Just take a step back, turn your phone off, and actually break down what plus 400 means, right? Plus 400 means 20% in terms of gambling, right? Plus 600 is what? 13%, something like that?
It's like 12 or 13, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we have to break down, okay, is his chances of winning actually more than 13%? Because I think there's a lot of people out there, not you and not most of the people that we know who I'm going to bring on as guests, but a lot of the viewers, a lot of the audience, a lot of people who actually watch the content. I don't think they actually know sometimes what the numbers mean. They just think the number sounds big. I think that's a real thing. So, oh, wow, plus 300, that's crazy. But actually, if you break it down, plus 300, do they have more than 75% chance of, 25% chance of winning? Oftentimes it's no, oftentimes it's no. Or oftentimes the line is accurate. If Umar fights Barcelos 100 times, maybe Umar does win 90 times. I mean, it is possible. Now, it's very rare for me to get to that, but just in general, I think people need to take a step back and actually look at the fight, look at the paths to victory, like you said, actually take the number for what it's worth in probability terms, not just what they think the number sounds like in their head. Oh, 400 is huge. So yeah, that's definitely something that we can take into account in the new year, and making less mistakes is extremely important. So we'll get straight into the UFC 283 card now, because I could probably speak to you about betting theory for hours. And one of these days, we probably should speak for, half an hour when I don't have any other guests and it's not a long podcast. But for now, the UFC 283, which is what everybody is come here for. Are there any fights that you want to touch on?
Yeah, let's talk about a fight that I already have a couple of units on. I don't have many bets yet, James, but I am probably going to be in the 8 to 10 bets, maybe a little less for this card. But yeah, the Munir Laziz, Gabriel Bonfim fight. Like, I love my Dana White's Contender Series. I watch a bunch of tape on these guys prior to getting to the UFC, right? And the Bonfim brothers are both Dana White Contender Series guys. And, when I first took a peek at this line, and I see, Bonfim was in the almost, I think he peaked at about 190 or 200 even. And Laziz, I think, hit like 170 at one point. And when I watched, I like I said, I've watched this guy, and what I take away from this guy is like, he's got pretty good boxing, throws in combinations, has a lot of subs, but doesn't really proactively grapple, to be honest. Like, it's mostly coming from his opponent's grappling, and somehow he gets on top, gets a submission or whatever. But for him, proactively, like wrestling, grappling, he just doesn't really do it on tape, right? His boxing is good. I'll give him that. I mean, he's got pretty good boxing. He's got decent, like, calf kicks. Not much of a big kicker, though, from what I saw on tape. Now, the issue I see here is, like, this guy being a minus 190 against a guy in Laziz who is a very, very good all-around striker, right? When I say all-around striker, he's got great kicking game, right? He's got great knees up the middle.
Great knees.
And great elbows in the clinch, right?
Yeah.
This guy's he's just a really good striker. The only issue I have with his striking is he tends to throw like one punch at a time some of the time. Now, sometimes, like in the third round against Angelusa, he's opening up with nice combinations, right? Where he rocked Angelusa in the third. So when I break down this fight, and for me, this fight doesn't look like it's going to hit the ground. Okay. And if it does, Laziz has great get-up game and takedown defense. I mean, the guy went 5 rounds with Eldar Eldarev, who's an absolute monster when it comes to wrestling, right? And Eldarev, go watch that fight for 5 rounds. He could not keep him down, right? Laziz always got back up. So the thing is here is you're telling me a guy, first off, I think Laziz is going to be the longer guy here, the bigger guy. 2, he's got the UFC experience. 3, he's faced the better opponents, right? Right? All these things are on his side. I think he's the cleaner striker all around, right? The better boxer might be Bonfim, but the all-around striker, he's the better striker. He's got the better kicks, better knees, better elbow. You know what I'm saying? He's got the all-around striking game. Why is this guy like plus 170? I understand Bonfim is good. He's younger. Maybe that has something to do with the price. But when I look at these guys' abilities, and a big factor is I know Laziz has good cardio. I don't think Bonfim has good cardio. Like the one fight where he got extended 3 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Alberth.
Yeah.
He gets dropped in the second round against a guy that's a jiu-jitsu guy. He's not a striker. Alberth is not a striker.
I don't think it wasn't a drop. He shot in for a takedown, and like he hit him as he shot in, and he kind of stumbled. It wasn't like a full drop.
The one where he went back to the fence
against the cage. The cage, yeah. So I replayed it a few times because it looks like it's debatable. We'll have to bring it up, but like I just wanted to say, like I watched it a few times, and it looks like, because I thought that's a weird drop. He shoots him for a takedown, and like as he shoots in, he gets caught, and so he's moving into it, and and then he stumbles against the cage. He is an argument. It's debatable. He gets dropped.
he looks hurt though, like, because he's almost finished in that fight. If the bell doesn't go, like, he probably gets choked out, right?
Yeah, I don't
Like,
know.
it is very close.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in anyways, outside of that, that fight was a 3-minute round fight, right? It's not 5-minute rounds, it's 3-minute rounds. So that's a big difference. And I see this guy slowing down in the one fight. He kind of gets extended. Like, he didn't look, I know he came on in the third, but the other guy was dead tired as well, right? His opponent, Albert, was like very, very tired as well, right? So what I'm basically trying to say is, I don't understand how this guy how do they come to this 190 number on this Bonfim guy outside of like age, right? Because I think, honestly, Munir Laziz's chin is really good. I mean, he got hurt to the body against Warley Alves. Yeah. But to the chin, like, he took absolute bombs from Al Hassan, who we know has lights out power.
Yeah.
Right?
He did. Yeah.
So the thing is, I can't get to to me, this line should absolutely be flipped. Lazez should be the favorite in this fight from what I've seen on tape. Yeah. So I don't get it. I bet it. I really like Lazez in this spot. I just think, unless this guy's falling off a cliff, which according to his last fight does not look like that. And to be honest, I think, I know some people like the overs in this fight. I like the under here, man. This guy has I think Bonfim has a problem a little with his gas tank. And I think Lazez can finish. I mean, Ange Luz is as tough as they come. And Al Hassan is super tough too. So the two guys he didn't finish are very, very durable dudes. So I think he finishes Bonfim in this fight. I kind of like the under as well here. But yeah, I mean, I really like Lazez in this spot.
I understand a lot of what you're saying. I think Munir Lazez is definitely the more layered striker. I do think Bonfim has, a considerable edge in the boxing. I will say that. I actually really, really like Bonfim's boxing. You said he was a good a good boxer. I think he's like a really good boxer. I think he's actually very high level boxer, at least in MMA terms. But a lot of times we see the boxers, they can't get off their boxing when they come against a striker who can teep them, who can knee them when they get close, because boxing range is also a range for you to get elbowed, clinched, and kneed. And that's exactly what Lazez does well. Actually, when Razak was trying to get in boxing range like he does every fight, we saw, okay, he did shell up against the fence quite a few times, a little bit more than you would potentially like against a strong boxer like Bonfim. But he was also able to keep range from Razak, keep boxing range from him with those long knees and with those elbows, A couple of those elbows got through to Razak, and Razak fought twice about coming in the second time, Same thing with the knees. He landed some heavy knees. So it's going to be an interesting stylistic matchup just because Bonfim's going to want to close range and Munir Lazez is not going to want to let him do that. So we're going to see how does he react to that. The thing about this fight is why I'm not backing Lazez, although I completely understand, is I'd like to ask you this question, throw this back at you as well. I actually think Bonfim's ceiling is definitely higher than Lazez. Do you agree or disagree? The top ranking they can get to in the UFC, Bonfim or Lazez?
I would say yes, only because of the age. Like Lazez at this point is, what is he, 36, 35, right? Usually guys are not going to start peaking. Yeah, he's not going to start peaking at this age, usually, right? We don't see, we have like people like Glover peaking, at 40, but how often does that happen in MMA, right? And on the other hand, Bonfim is, 25, right? So
yes,
of course, I'm gonna agree with you and say, this guy probably has a better ceiling.
Yeah,
but he's also, when you say he's got really good boxing, I agree with you. But defensively, he's when he leaves himself open. He's kind of wild.
Yeah, he
right?
can get cracked.
Yeah. So he can get cracked. He's see, when I watch Lazez, he does get hit, but he's a lot more defensively sound than Bonfim is, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, I agree with you. The ceiling is definitely on the Bonfim side. I mean, this guy's 35 years old, Lazez. Like, what's his ceiling anymore? Like, he gets a couple more wins in the UFC.
Yeah.
Okay, but like he's just kind of peaked, right? He's gonna be the same guy. Like he's gonna have decent kicks. Like, is he gonna add layers to his game? I don't think so. You know, as opposed to Bonfim, I think he can add, you know, different layers. You know, start kicking a little more. You know, whatever it may be. Maybe wrestle a little. Use your jiu-jitsu. You know.
So the other reason, just to counter your Lazez bet, you know, just to play devil's advocate on the Bonfim side, I still feel like I don't know much about Lazez, or considering the amount of fights and the amount of rounds I've watched from him, I still feel like there's things I don't know about him. I still feel like he could be a bit flaky. I mean, that Alves fight was a really weird look. I don't think we just completely disregard it. Now, on the one hand, maybe he just got hurt to the body. They were very heavy body kicks, and he got hit like 3 or 4 times with them. Maybe he just got hit in the wrong spot, broke his rib. Anything could have happened, liver shot, whatever it was, and he just crumbled. It can happen to any man on the face of the earth, right? So maybe that happened. Or maybe he's weak to the body. Does Bonfim go to the body? Yes. Did Wally Alves finish him with pressure? Yes. Does Bonfim pressure? Yes. You know, I just feel like that Wally Alves fight, it wasn't a good look in my opinion. Ange Lusa, I don't think Lusa's UFC level. That doesn't tell me much about Lazez. That was a showcase fight for Lazez. I think Ange Lusa is extremely tough, and maybe he wins a couple fights in the UFC on toughness and cardio alone if he faces a gasser, right? But I don't think Ange Lusa is UFC level, honestly. And then the Razak fight, we know after 5 minutes, Razak isn't really there. So his UFC career to me isn't that impressive. And there's still questions that I have for Lazez, right? So for that reason, it's a pass for me. I understand Lazez. And honestly, I think Lazez is the side. Like, gun to my head, who should I bet on this weekend for value, right? Bet on Lazez. But I'm not going to do it because I actually do think Bonfim has a high ceiling. Like I said, not just compared to Lazez, but in general, I do think Bonfim has a high ceiling. I think he can win a lot of fights in the UFC, and I think he can be in a UFC for another 10 years. I genuinely do. I think he's going to improve from fight to fight. He's got 100% finish rate. I actually rate him as a fighter quite a bit. So for that reason, I'm passing, you know, but I completely understand your takes, and good luck to you on the fight because I'm not betting it at all. So hopefully you cash that ticket.
Thank you.
Shall we talk about one more fight?
Go ahead. You pick it.
Okay, so what we haven't spoke about now. Let me ask you about this fight because I spoke to Jeremy Kennedy earlier, obviously, as you know, and he is a training partner of Cody Stamann, right? And actually, I'm fading Cody Stamann this time out. It's my smallest bet on the card. I'm not having a massive play on it, but I did take a 1-unit shot on Luan Lacerda at plus 275 here. He's got long range striking, doesn't look that good on the feet, honestly, but at least he's taller than Cody. He's got a longer reach than Cody, which everybody who fights Cody has that because he's a very short guy for the division, short reach as well. But I just feel like Lacerda can at times win minutes on the feet just because he is so long. He throws a lot of kicks as well. So when you're long, you got a reach advantage, you're way taller, kicks are going to come in handy. So I do think at times he can win minutes on the feet. You know, it's not, I do think he's going to lose on the feet, but I do think he can win minutes on the feet. And then I just feel like he's so dangerous with the submissions, and Cody often puts his head into guillotines. We know that not just from Said Nurmagomedov. He's done that against many fighters. He also gets in weird positions on the ground, sometimes plays there when, in my opinion, he shouldn't stay there. You know, sometimes he'll play on the ground in certain positions where I think Lacerda is an absolute phenom on the ground. I mean, even Jeremy Kennedy, who was on, you know, last time, he said that he's heard, you know, through the gym, and obviously Cody is his training partner. He's heard that Lacerda is an absolute phenom on the ground. Everybody knows him in Brazil. And when you look at his record, I mean, the dude subbed everyone. And when you look at the tape, the submissions are not normal submissions. I mean, the way he takes the back is unbelievable. I mean, he's so fast in transitions. He'll switch from heel hook to back take, which I absolutely love when you see it in MMA. It's just like a snake, you know. Not many fighters do it. They switch from heel hook to back take, but it's pretty solid when you see it. And he does that on tape a couple of times. His submissions look extremely live. I just feel like at 275, you don't need too much to get me to the window, right? I do think Cody's going to win. I think Cody might finish as well. And I am actually, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, I'm actually looking at the under, because I think the under is like plus 200, which basically covers Lacerda win condition. And then I think Lacerda went to decision once or something. So, I mean, definitely a big chance if he can't get Cody down, the pressure of Cody on the feet is way too much and Cody gets to finish. Even though he's a decision machine, he just got to finish last time out. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. So under 2.5 rounds plus 200. Please tell me your opinion on that. And how do you think I'm going to do playing the shot on Lacerda?
I don't mind it. But instead of money line, I'm probably just going to stab submission.
What is the price?
I actually already have. It's a really good price. I haven't put it up yet, but it's plus 600, and I think that line is off. Like,
are you sure?
100%. It's. I mean, I bet it. It's on DraftKings, so I think that line is way off. I've already bet it. But yeah, I mean, like I think that's his path. I don't think that this guy's actually, when you say standing, yeah, he's the longer guy. But honestly, when I watch his boxing, this guy's pretty awful when on his feet. I don't like, he's got some decent kicks, but his hands are very, very bad, to be honest. And you don't want this guy standing for too long. And I don't think he's going to really stand here. Like, he's going to even pull guard, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you mentioned that's very, very important is Cody Stamann might still turn to his wrestling. I mean, that's what he knows, man.
He's a wrestler.
He's
a wrestler.
Lived and breathed wrestling, right? He might still shoot at times for wrestling and maybe get himself in some stupid spots. This guy was close to getting subbed by who was it before Saeed? He almost got subbed there. Was it Merab? I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me. But
Merab, yeah.
He almost got subbed there against Merab. And, and Merab is not like a good grappler. I mean, he's a good wrestler, but he doesn't have submission game. And a quick fact, I don't know if anybody knows, but Lacerda has a submission win over Highland Paiva, who's a UFC guy and who's a good UFC fighter, right?
Yeah.
And Paiva, I think, has never been submitted outside of the Lacerda sub. So, I mean, this guy's dangerous on the ground, and you're telling me plus 600? Like, I don't understand the line. Plus 600. Yeah, I mean, I took a shot at him at plus 600. I'm not laying, I think Cody Stamann should, win pretty easily. But if he makes a mental mistake, right, he can get subbed. That's the thing here.
So for some reason, Narco, in my head, submission was plus 350. And it must be another fighter I was thinking of, because I've just checked it now. 600 DraftKings, 600 5 times, and then 400 Bet Online or something. So kind of annoying, because I would have rather the 600 than the 275 for sure. When I bet it myself, it's a different thing. But when I tip it to my members, when I track it, I always track the widely available line. So maybe I wouldn't have done 600. Maybe then it makes sense to take 275 over like 350 or whatever. But I'm going to see how it opens up market wide. And maybe I've already laid the 1 unit on him now, but maybe I just add a little sprinkle on, because I do think submission is extremely live. So we'll see, man. We'll see how it goes, bro. But listen, been a great chatting to you. As I said, we should do another betting talk where we speak about philosophy and poker and all that good stuff. But thanks for coming on, brother. I forgot to say this to Ben Davis, man. I fucked up, or Jeremy, but do you want to shout out anything on the stream? There's quite a few live viewers in here now. Please shout out your channel. I know you're doing some work for the outfit you told me about recently. You got a weekly podcast. Lambo Plays is back. I hope that's back. Just shout out anything you got to shout out, brother.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me before anything. You've been my friend for a while. We always talk fights. We get along really well. I love being on your show anytime. Lambo Plays. It's on. It was on last week. It's with Timothy Troiano, another great guy. He's my co-host. It's every Friday on my YouTube channel, NarcoCop MMA. And also, I'm doing content for, like I said, Stochastic DFS, Odd Shopper channel, their YouTube channel. You could see it on my Twitter profile at NarcoCop. And it's just a recorded video every Friday of my 3 favorite plays. It's going to be basically a money line play, my favorite underdog, and my favorite prop. So, Yeah, James, thanks for having me, brother. Hope you have a wonderful 2023. You crush it. Hope everybody in chat crushes it. And we all just murder those bookies.
Yes, that's the goal, man. All right. Thanks a lot, Narco. Speak again soon, bro. And that was Narco Cop, the man himself. Lambo plays. I think in a couple years, Narco's going to be driving a Lambo, man. And I'm going to be right there with him because we're going to cash some big tickets in 2023 and beyond, I'm sure. Quick shout out to everybody in chat. No, like Narco said, and like Narco says, and this should be said more. Without people watching this video, without the chat popping off, and the chat's popping off today, so shout out to everyone there. We wouldn't make these videos. If no one was watching, I wouldn't make a video, right? So I appreciate every single one of you watching. I really do. Hopefully the content that I'm bringing provide you with some entertainment, for a couple of hours. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in the man himself. I wanted to bring this guy on as the first guest of the night because I really want to showcase this guy, man, because I did his podcast last year and I was a little bit asleep on him, right? But this guy is one of the hardest working content creators and gamblers in the space. And I know how hard it is to watch tape, gamble yourself, and then also make content on it. It's extremely hard. I do it myself, so I know. But the guy is super consistent, putting out a podcast every single week. And I know he watches tape. I'm pretty sure he watches tape. So shout out to my man here, Mike from Couch Warrior Podcast. How are you, bro?
What's good, James? I'm good. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for having me on. Super dope to be here. Bunch of dope guys here. Awesome idea for a show. And yeah, hyped to be here. Hyped to break down some fights.
Good stuff, brother. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this card because this is probably going to be a really good card. 15 fights. So we got a lot of, as gamblers, in my opinion, not even in my opinion, it's a fact. As a gambler, it's always better when there's more fights, just more opportunities to make money. People complain. I said this to Ben Davis earlier, man. People complain about cards all the time, right? But those are the type of people that just complain in life in general, because at the end of the day, I'm talking about gamblers, right? If you're a fan, you complain about a card, whatever, innit? But as a gambler, don't complain about the cards. At the end of the day, they're swinging punches. Most of the time, the fights are exciting. And if they're not, they're usually just funny anyway. Like fights that are just bad. They're just funny. But we have a chance to bet on these fights. So I don't understand these moaners all the time moaning about the UFC and all of this sort of stuff. So this fight, this fight card, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to make us money. There is one thing that I wanted to speak to you about before. I've been asking a lot of my guest questions before we get into the breakdowns. And like I said, from what I can tell, you do tape, right? You do a lot of tape. You do a lot of breakdowns. And a lot of people out there are lazy motherfuckers, right? And they struggle with procrastination and stuff like that. And that's like probably one of the main causes of what you want to call it, like depression or unsuccessfulness in the world, is procrastination. People just can't get things done. There's many reasons for that, but you are not one of those. At least, I don't know your personal life, but at least in the MMA content creating space and in the gambling and watching tape space, right? And that takes up a lot of time. So I want to ask you, and for all my viewers watching, because this game can be tough, brutal, especially when you're losing, how are you able to keep such a good work ethic, not only with the content creation, but also with the watching of tape? Because it's a monotonous thing sometimes. How are you able to do that?
Hell yeah. I think for me, it's the passion, right? So I don't talk about it much. I'm currently in law school. That's like my current career trajectory. And I'll be honest, I don't really want to do it. This is what I love. This is what I enjoy. So it's not that hard for me to find motivation to sit down, tape, do this stuff, because this is the one thing I'm doing in my life right now that I thoroughly enjoy. And if I got to do this as a future, like, that's cool.
Okay. So for Mike, it's just the love of it, right? And that, I'm a bit torn on that one in terms of when I give advice to people, because it's like, on the one hand, if you are super passionate about something, then you're going to be more likely to do the work, right? But on the other hand, sometimes passion fades. Your passions change from year to year. 5-6 years ago, I wasn't as passionate about some of the things I am today. So sometimes you just have to suck it up and just do the work anyway, because as a man, you need to grind, you need to make things happen. But completely understand, if you're passionate about something, it's a lot easier. So without further ado, let's get onto this card, which is what everyone's here for. UFC 283. Is there any fight you want to speak about, my man?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of beating a dead horse because you guys have been talking about it for a while, but you mentioned it, I think, with the last guest with Narco.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to talk about, what is it? Cody Stamann and Lacerda.
Yeah.
Because what you said is exactly what I actually played last night, the under. I played the under 2.5 at plus 200.
Yeah,
I got to say, I really like it. I really like that spot because there's a few ways it can happen, right? Lacerda, everybody's saying his win condition is a sub. I tend to agree. That's going to probably happen under 2.5 if it does. And then Stamann, I understand that he's a decision machine, but against high-level opponents, right?
Yeah.
When he's fighting a step down, Brian Kelleher, he's getting finishes. Eddie Wineland, finish. So if Lacerda is as sub or bust as people are saying, I could see a knockout from Stamann. I can see a sub from Lacerda. So at plus 200 for the under 2.5, I really liked it. It's plus 190. I just pulled it up now, but I think it's still a good price. Played it for a unit.
Yeah. I guess the books they're like, okay, Cody Stamann's a minus 300, minus 400 favorite. Cody Stamann always gets decisions. They price Cody Stamann decision. I don't know what it is. It's probably minus 150 or something like that. So for that reason, they kind of have to give the under at that money. But I do think it's a little bit mispriced. I don't know if I'm going to jump on it myself because, I've already bet the Lacerda side. I'm thinking of betting submission as well if I get a good number. And then I want more exposure because there is a world in which Cody Stamann just gets another decision here. I mean, it's definitely possible.
Sure.
At the end of the day, we don't really know much about Lacerda. We don't know whether he's easily finishable. I mean, he lost via submission like almost 10 years ago. But other than that, we don't really know. We know that he's not great on the feet. He doesn't look that good, but we don't know whether he's tough. I don't really know whether he's got a great chin. I don't really know much about his durability. So oftentimes we get these spots where we know Lacerda can finish Stamann with submission. He can finish anyone, right? We kind of guessing that Stamann might be able to finish Lacerda if he fades, but we got to remember, we're guessing on a plus 200. So I don't mind guessing on a plus 200, because in reality, you're not guessing if Lacerda can finish Stamann, because in my opinion, he can if he gets to the positions. I think I'm pretty confident if he gets his back, like there's a higher chance that he's going to finish him, right? And so we're only guessing on one side. So I completely understand that. What about the money line? I mean, do you have any opinions on how you cap the fight? Is Stamann deserving to be minus 350? Stuff like that.
So he's actually minus 405 on Bet Online now.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I guess technically, like, I don't think the price makes sense, but I think he's a rightful heavy favorite. Again, right. Lacerda, sub or bust for the most part.
Yeah.
I just personally, I don't like playing stuff like that when I don't know too much about Lacerda. He could very well be even better than we're seeing. He's against LFA guys, against Brazilian regional scene. It's hard to really get a taste for him.
And I think.
Oh, sorry, James.
No, I was just going to say Paiva. He's sub Paiva.
That's a good one. And honestly, in terms of his striking, I don't think it's horrible. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think it's terrible. And Stamann, you look at him, he's not like a kickboxer. He's meat and potatoes. It works. He uses it to get the wrestling, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to be like a standout striker compared to Lacerda. So I don't like the line. I considered playing Lacerda plus 305. I might still get there because it's a cheap way to hit this fight. You could play it for a third of a unit, right? Almost bring home a unit, maybe something like that.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like you are a little bit less risk adverse when it comes to steering into the volatility of someone you don't know much about. Am I right?
Yeah, I don't like unknowns.
Yeah, fair enough. Like I always say, there's something which, I kind of coined this term, and it's like in gambling, the objective of the game is to make as little as guesses as possible. We already have to make guesses when we're gambling on MMA, right? That's literally what we're doing. Gambling in general, we are guessing. So you want to make as little as guesses as possible. So when you got a guy, you don't know what his cardio is like. You don't know if he can take a punch. You don't know if he's going to have a good weight cut. All of these stuff, like when Amarva fought Strickland the other day, Strickland short notice, a weight class that he's never fought out before. These are all things which just turn me off. It's like a turn off. It's like, I don't want to bet on that fight because they're unknowns. So I completely understand passing. But again, the price is everything, right? So maybe there's unknowns, but it's 280, so we'll see how it goes. What else, brother? Do you have anyone else, any other fights you want to speak about before I get you out of here, or should we get going?
I don't think I heard you guys talk about the main event. Did you?
No, we haven't spoke about the main event yet. It's funny. We've just been speaking about like the early prelims and stuff.
Yeah, so, I was listening to you guys. I was on the train, so I was like trying to see what you guys were talking about. So I'm down for the main event if you are.
Yes, please kick it off for me, brother. What do you think? Sure. Do you think it's going to be the old man doing the thing again, or do you think it's time for some new blood and Hill gets a KO win?
It's time for some new blood. I just don't think it's going to happen now. I think the old man, I think Grandpa's going to pull out and pull up.
Okay.
I went into this. I was set on playing Jamal Hill. I do tape every fight, but like, just like everyone else, I watch every week. I still have things left over in my head. So I'll first glance on the odds. I was thinking Hill. I loved his striking. I thought his takedown defense would work. And you think of Glover and most fights, he's getting hurt every single fight, then surviving, then submitting his opponent.
Yeah.
If he gets hurt against Hill, I'm not positive that he's going to get an opportunity to recover. But then you run back the Hill-Thiago Santos fight, and you kind of just see issues. You see a bunch of issues. And it would be one thing if Hill had a ton of time to prepare for this fight, but he didn't. This got announced, like a month ago? Something like that?
Yeah,
he was going to fight Anthony Smith, a completely different opponent. So I like Glover. I'm going to play his money line probably, and I'm just going to wait because I think people are going to keep parlaying Hill. I think people are going to play his money line as the casual money comes in. I bet we're going to get Glover like plus 140. I would love that for a unit. So that's the way I'm looking.
Yeah, so that's good to hear some disagreeing opinion because I actually am picking Hill to win. And kind of scares me because everybody I see on Twitter, they're all picking Hill. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. For me, I don't have much to say. I mean, it's pretty clean the way I break this fight down. I just feel like, and I'm glad you touched on this, right? That if he gets hurt by Hill, he may not come back from it. Because I've seen a lot of people on Hill, but I've also seen the sentiment that Glover has an amazing chin. Yeah, he gets hurt, but he comes back, so it doesn't matter. I've also seen that same thing about Gregory Rodriguez. Yeah, Rodriguez gets hurt, but he comes back, so you can't bank on him getting KO'd. These are really, really... I'm usually not the one to diss, but these are extremely square statements in MMA betting. Because let me tell you something now. This is MMA. It's a brutal game. You cannot keep getting hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt and just surviving. It doesn't happen. It's never happened in MMA history. Eventually, the KO comes, right? Eventually, the KO. Glover's been KO'd multiple times anyway, by the way. It's not like he's never been KO'd. But like the KO comes eventually, right? So to all those people saying, oh, Glover, he gets hurt, but he comes back, so it doesn't matter. He's not going to keep on getting hurt. One of these days, he's going to get deaded, right? It's going to be headshot, dead. I do think that it's coming this weekend. I do think Jamal Hill is going to KO him. I think one thing that is different from the Jiri fight, because a few people are also saying, but Jiri's a harder puncher than Hill or the same puncher, and he couldn't get Glover out of there. I think the big difference, and this is no secret, everyone knows this, right? I think the big difference is more that Jiri is more hook-based, more uppercut-based, more wild-based. He just steams in and throws from crazy angles, which is good for him because it really makes his opponents not know where the punches are coming from, and he's hard to deal with. And that is a big reason why he gets KOs. But I think the big weakness on Glover is his speed and his reactions in the striking. I think that is where Glover fails. He's a good boxer. I think Glover's a good boxer. I think Glover is a good striker, right? But I think that he lacks speed in his striking defense and his striking, right? I think Hill excels in speed. Everyone's talking about the accuracy, which is obviously super important. But I think people are not speaking about the speed enough, right? So I think the speed and accuracy of Hill is going to exploit Glover's slowness. And I do think he's going to crack him and put him out. But man, if the fight gets to the ground, he could definitely finish him on the ground easily. I will say, though, I think Hill was an absolute I think Hill has the heart of a lion. I mean, we've seen that in a few of his fights. He's come back, even against Santos. That third round wasn't good, and he just knocked him out in the fourth. And he looked like he had amazing cardio in the fourth. I actually think Hill has elite cardio. I don't think people really rate Hill's cardio. I actually think he has elite cardio, not even good. That's yet to be seen. I also believe that Hill has a heart of a lion. We saw that in the Craig fight. And I just feel like if Glover doesn't finish him in round 1, but still pounds him out, I don't think that means anything, because I think he can come back in round 2 and get a knockout. So I don't think Hill's ever out of this fight. You know, I heard someone break down the fight and say, oh, if Hill doesn't win in round 1 or 2, then Glover's like -1,000. I completely disagree with that. I think if Glover doesn't get him out of there, Hill is live in every single round. I honestly do, unless he's just like completely beaten to a pulp. He can't even see Ortega Volkanovski style. So yeah, man, I like Hill here. I could look like an absolute idiot because going against Glover, you usually do look like an idiot. I will say though, I've bet on Glover in 4 of his last fights, and I'm jumping off the train here, right? So it's not like I don't rate Glover.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, man. So we'll see. We might go head to head. We'll see how that goes.
That's
but yeah,
all
bro.
right.
I got the other guest waiting now. So look, I really appreciate you coming on. Again, everybody go follow my Couch Warrior podcast, one of the hardest working guys in the industry. Yeah, man, just plug your service. You've got a YouTube channel. I know you got a Twitter as well. You're very active on. And if there's anything you want to say, please say it now.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, first off, I want to say thank you to you. You've been super dope. Came on my show last year. That was awesome. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have you on again this year. And yeah, thanks for having me on. In terms of at Couch Warrior Pod on Twitter, Couch Warrior Podcast is the YouTube. Make sure you're following that. On Twitter, I post my picks as soon as I make them. So if you want to follow picks, that's where to go. In terms of shows, I actually have a show tonight with Patrick from Addicted to Combat. If you guys know him, we do a panel for pay-per-views. We're going to be joined by Liam from Liam Picks Fights and Gordo from Gordo Gambles. That's tonight, 10:45 Eastern time. And then what's tomorrow? Thursday, right? I'm losing track of this week. Tomorrow, yeah. Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I've got a new Twitter space. We're doing props, me and Propaholic. Make sure to check that out tomorrow. And lastly, tonight we've got Invicta. Tomorrow we've got Aries FC. I've already got videos out for both of those. So if you need bets, you want bets, make sure to run those back. And yeah, thank you again, James.
You seem to be a super popular guest, man, because every motherfucker is saying shout out to you. It's unfortunate that my analytics for my YouTube channel is 100% male, because you seem like you got a lot of followers here, man. But yeah, thanks again for coming on, brother. And I'll get you in the future for sure.
For sure. Thanks, James.
Okay. That was Couch Warrior Podcast, man. Like I said, I checked my YouTube analytics the other day and there was 100% male. So that's a shame for Couch Warrior because he's got so many fans here. Shame some of them ain't female, man. But it is what it is. He's definitely a good guy. He puts out so much content every week. So I definitely respect that because I know how hard it is to put out content, man. And speaking about content every single week, the next guest I'm going to bring in has been putting out content every single week for years, literally. Like when I jumped on Twitter, when I first got into the MMA space, one of the first people I saw was John Stargarian, who I'm going to bring him now from the Club and Sub podcast. He's definitely someone who's been consistent and honestly, one of the sharpest minds in MMA gambling, in my opinion. That's why I wanted to get him on today. John, how you doing?
What's going on, James? How are you?
Doing well, brother. I'm excited for this card. Excited to talk to you about this card as well.
Yeah, I am as well. I mean, it's a great card, honestly. Getting the year started with 2 really nice cards before we jump into the cesspool that next week is, Yeah, I mean, do you want me to just start talking about like what I like, or how do you want to go about it?
I wanted to ask you one question because I kind of been asking, other than the fights, I've been asking the guests like 1 or 2 questions. And like I said, I think you're one of the sharpest minds in the space just from how you break down fights. Whenever I hear you break down a fight, you always look at it from multiple angles. I feel like you're not dogmatic, which is also something that is very important in sports betting. I feel like a lot of people in MMA betting, they're very dogmatic on specific things, like you need to auto bet a fighter if they're plus 500 or like, you have to fade this fighter every single fight, stuff like that. And I feel like you look at it from all different angles. And what I want to say, and something you can help my audience, and viewers with, is what would you say if you just had to break it down in a paragraph? You could probably write a book on this, but if you had to break it down in a paragraph, what would be your philosophy behind MMA betting in general? Because my philosophy is, if I had to break it down in a couple of sentences, it would probably be you should always strive to be a good all-round bettor, right? So, like, for example, I see some people, they would, they tell me they'd never bet an over, right? Or stuff like that. I would never bet on this fighter, or you could never bet a decision prop if it's minus money, like stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel like you should always strive to be a good all-round bettor. You should always be able to bet every type of bet. But the caveat to that, because there's lots of nuance in MMA betting, people think it's black and white, but it's not. The caveat to that is that I actually also think everybody has strengths. And I think it's very important to hone in your strengths when you're betting on MMA, because like I said, there's lots of people who would never bet an over. But there's also a lot of people that are just not good at betting overs. So in my opinion, they should strive to be good at betting overs, and they should try and work on that skill, but they should also focus on their strength. If your strength is betting an underdog, or if your strength is, betting on women's 115 fights, I think you should hone in on that. So the combination of those two things would be like my philosophy, I would say, behind sports betting. So, just keep it short and sweet. Is there anything you can say, you look for? What is your philosophy when you come to MMA gambling?
Yeah, I would say what I constantly strive for. It often manifests itself in betting underdogs, but what I more strive for is kind of finding market inefficiencies. And for obviously, that's the goal at the end of the day for everybody, right? But what I've found to be the most conducive for that is just try to find things that everybody, I'm trying to think about the best way to phrase this, things that the market is not pricing in, which some would call being a contrarian. But often I find, like, if everybody feels the same way about a particular fight and therefore feels one fighter is the side, the odds are that's being properly reflected in the line, right? You don't have any market, whether it's, equities, crypto, commodities, no matter what it is, nothing that is that obvious to the masses is everything that is obvious to the masses is always priced in. And where I've found, to find the biggest edges is to try to analyze fights from the perspective of, okay, well, what I know X, Y, and Z, and so does everybody else. What is everybody else not keeping in mind with this fight?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, man. And I think that's 100% true. And, you just saying that now, it brought something up. And I want to ask you this question. I don't have like statistics on this at all, but something that I've just thought about that I think it's probably true. I'm not going to say it's definitely true. I'm going to need to, write it down and analyze it for a year or two. But I feel like anytime we see on MMA Twitter, everybody on one fighter, but the line goes the other way, usually that fighter wins. I don't know if I'm just being biased, but I remember Kopylov last week out. I bet on Kopylov, right? Plus 140. And everyone was on Punahele Soriano, right? But then Kopylov was like plus 130. And then like another 20 people posted about Soriano. Then it was like plus 110. And I mean, by the time it went off, like Kopylov was like plus 115. Have you seen that too? Or is it just confirmation bias?
I will tell you this right now. When I look at like Bet MMA and I see like everybody on the same side I'm betting and nobody other, I get like physically queasy from like looking at it. And not that like, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but like I said, and like you just said, it's like we're all seeing the fight the same way, and yet either the line's moving against us or it's just not moving, which means either everybody's not betting money on it, which isn't the case, or there's an angle that everybody's missing that people that are betting like serious money with a real sharp angle are taking on the other side of it. The Kopylov line is a good example. I bet Soriano right at post because it got all the way down to minus 130. And I was like, I'm not going to screw around with this. But I was finally just like, it's against my better judgment. I knew everybody was on the Soriano side, but I was like, if it gets to 130, I'm going to take a shot at it. And yeah, I mean, that was a perfect example. And I find like, I think part of it is, I think you look at MMA, whether it's MMA Twitter, Bet MMA or, any content, I think there's comfort in being, part of the herd for a lot of people, it's like people want to hear confirmation bias, right? Everybody wants to hear that. It's much harder to step off a cliff and be like, oh, all these people I respect feel the exact opposite way from me. But that's usually where you're going to find some of your best advantages, right? When people are missing something.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. And honestly, bro, I could probably speak to you about this philosophy. Like I said to Narco, for like an hour, and maybe in the future we should do that. But for now, we'll speak about these UFC 283 fights, man, because I think they're, I think it's a good card, like you said. I just want to kick it off, and I want to ask your opinion because for some reason I feel like you're going to be on Glover Teixeira because I kind of know, like, I know your betting style in some way. So I want you to tell me. We just broke it down with Couch, but I just want you to tell me your opinion on the Hill versus Teixeira side, because as I said, I am on Hill.
Yeah, I guess my view on that fight is more or less. I think Hill is pretty good, and I think he's very good. I should say, not pretty good. And I think if Glover gets stuck at range here, I think he's going to have less success standing with Hill than he did with Jiri, for instance, because I think Jiri's ability to measure distance is much, much, much worse than Hill's is. Yeah. So from that angle, it's like I always knew going into the Jiri fight, even though I lost that bet, but like I always knew Glover was more live to compete on the stand-up than he was probably being given credit for by the market. Whereas I don't think that's the case here. I'm a lot less passionate about this than a lot of Glover fights recently, to be honest. I guess my view is when it comes to Hill, like his grappling's a bit of an unknown. And I mean, we know he can be taken down. Like we've obviously seen that happen multiple times throughout both his regional and professional career. Thus far, he hasn't been held down. But you're talking about, Darko Stasic and Thiago Santos, who really just don't present much of a threat on top. And so what I'm betting on here, like I look at how Hill gets up, and he has a tendency to just kind of try to butt scoot to the fence, which, by the way, against a lot of grapplers in the UFC, especially at 205, is a very effective way of working the fence and getting back to your feet. But that's just not really on the table against someone with a heavy top game like Glover, who's going to grab the post hand, and try to work up that way. And, I'm certain Hill's never seen somebody like Glover on top of him in his career. And so my broad view is, yes, if it turns out Hill, like it's a highly volatile fight, because if it turns out Hill can get up, he's a huge favorite. Whereas it could be one takedown and the fight's over. I mean, I don't expect that to be the case, but I do trust Glover to get takedowns here and control Hill longer. And so I'm kind of siding with, the grappling upside of Glover and the potential for getting serious top time or a submission over Hill's much more striking dependent path.
Yeah. So I'm right. You are on Glover and I'm on Hill, which is good because, we debate and discussion is always good. Like we just said, it's not always good to be part of the crowd. I feel like you're kind of more on the island this time out because I've only seen takes for Hill, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. They're still going to fight at the end of the day. They don't give a shit about who's talking on Twitter. They're just going to get in there. So whatever. One thing I do want to, ask about this fight or ask to you, so I obviously think Glover can get takedowns. I just believe that there is some scope for Hill to stuff early takedowns. I think he's being, or I don't know. I just feel like some people are just, Glover's instantly going to get takedowns if he gets the clinch. I don't think so. I think Hill's strong in the first and second rounds. If you go back and watch the Thiago Santos fight, I know Santos isn't a Glover. Santos is not a Glover by any stretch of the imagination with the wrestling, but he is extremely athletic. And you would think that early on he would, have some strength, explosivity, and some technique to get Hill down. He could not touch Hill for 2 rounds, for 10 minutes. He had no success. Everyone's talking about, the 6 takedowns. 5 of those come in round 3, right? So, okay, he had a poor round 3, but then he came back and looked great in round 4 and knocked him out. But I just feel like there is some scope for Hill to stuff a couple of early takedowns. And if he does do that, I mean, I honestly don't think the fight has to go too long on the feet for him to get a knockout in this spot. So how do you feel about Hill's potential to, stuff a couple of takedowns early? Or do you think once Glover gets his hands on him, he's done?
I actually don't disagree with you. What's interesting is it's kind of funny because Glover's recent run, he's being treated as an elite wrestler when actually, if you look historically, he's not a bad wrestler by any means, but elite wrestlers have actually dominated Glover throughout his career, and he hasn't had really much to say about it. I think, first of all, I think Glover getting to the clinch is going to be problematic early in this fight, which is why I'm not as passionate against Glover or about Glover as I was in the Jiri fight, because Hill does maintain distance very, very well. But yeah, I mean, in there, I think especially on the fence, it's going to be kind of hard for him to consolidate position like very early in this fight. Even if he does get takedowns, because Hill getting up against the fence is not bad. But the real danger to me for Hill is like if he gets stuck in the open mat or with his shoulders away from the fence, I think he's in really real trouble in that kind of a fight. But I agree. I guess my view is I don't think, and I could be wrong because it's like Glover's 43, so maybe it is a case of it only is going to take 1 or 2 combinations to get him out of there. But, you know, throughout this whole late stage run for Glover, you know, the guy's walked through damage in just about every fight. So while I do kind of agree with you, I don't think it's going to be easy per se for him to just get to Hill's hips, get him down, get to mount, etc. I also don't think Hill is going to be able to just, or I mean, he could, but I don't think he's like a lock to ice him in the first couple exchanges either. You know, one of the things we have seen in this run for Glover has been, you know, just incredible recoverability. I mean, the guy's been hurt in every fight dating back to like the Smith fight, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. You're looking at that more in a more nuanced way. You're saying like, look, he could get iced, but because he's recovered, he may recover again. I've seen a few people out there, which is just a completely nonsensical take. They're saying, you know, Glover gets hurt, but he comes back, so you can't say anything about his chin. No, this is MMA, right? If you get hurt, you're not going to keep on getting hurt and coming back. Like I remember Gugabe was big on Jeff Neal KO in Luque, right? And like everyone's like, no, it's impossible. Luque, he gets hurt, but he can't be knocked out. You know, these things in MMA, there is no you get hurt but can't be knocked out. If you get hurt, that's not a good sign going forward. You're going to get knocked out one of these days, you know.
I do think Glover, I mean, it's hard to argue against, you know, declining durability for Glover, right? You know, this is a guy who early in his career was viewed as one of the most durable fighters in the UFC. And like I said, I believe his recoverability is still quite good, but you know, he got hurt by Anthony Smith. Obviously, he was hurt multiple times by Jiri. He was hurt by Carl Roberson. He was hurt by Jan Kutalaba. Eventually, one of those times it's going to go, and it could be here, you know?
Yeah. We'll see. We're going head to head, so it's quite fun, but, you know, we'll see. Is there any other fight you want to speak about? And if so, do you mind just kicking it off right now? I need to go piss. I'm still going to be on live for about another hour, so I think I should get it out of the way. Otherwise, I'm going to piss my pants. So I can still hear you. I'm going to turn you up. I'm just going to jump off the screen. Kick off any fight you want to talk about, and I'll be back.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to talk about an interesting one here, guys. I had planned to talk about Munir Lazzez. I actually like Lazzez quite a bit in that spot, but I think I'm going to talk about something else, and that's Nick Dalby and Warlley Alves. I think this is the kind of fight similar along the lines of what I was just talking with James about when I came on, where I think most of the market is looking at Nick Dalby as a fighter who is deteriorated and falling off a cliff, and they're treating Warlley Alves as if, you know, his relative youth and athleticism should be enough to just blow through him here. You know, if you look at where this line opened, it opened at even money. I guess money came in on Dalby early on those openers because it swung back the other way now to Alves' favorite. And all I've really seen this week are pro Alves takes. But to be honest, I actually like Dalby in this spot, and I'm I'm going to bet him. I'm just kind of waiting up for this line. But, you know, one of the things that's interesting, you know, when I go back through the Alves tape is just how middling he is versus my memory. You know, Alves, obviously he's Brazilian. He's at home, good athlete, very, very explosive, dangerous early in fights. But when you look at his actual technical ability, I am not really that blown away. You know, the guy doesn't defend head strikes very well at all. He tends to basically swing from the hip with his hands mostly. Like, he's not really a boxer. Obviously, he throws good kicks, but just defensively, he's very open, on top of which the man has virtually no pacing, and has never just shown, you know, the discipline to pace himself in an extended fight in his career. And as such, you know, we've seen him gas pretty much every fight that's got extended other than the Sergio Moraes fight, where we saw Moraes gas in that fight 3 minutes in and basically was falling all over himself for the last 10 minutes. And so I think, you know, people look at Dalby's last fight and they're like, he looked horrible. It was Claudio Silva. And people forget, like, Claudio Silva's a motherfucker, man. Like, that guy, like, he's not good at MMA, but he ends up being a really, really tricky guy for people to deal with. You know, it's a guy who subbed Nordine Taleb. He's a guy who once upon a time beat Leon Edwards by decision of all things. And so people look at Dalby looking bad and they're like, Worley's going to run through him. And it's like, yeah, well, 2 fights ago, Dalby went to basically a 50-50 fight with Tim Means, who personally I'd rate out as a better striker than Worley Alves. The fight before that, he won a split decision against Daniel Rodriguez, who is certainly a much better striker than Worley Alves is. And so it's like, I think Dalby I think he's the sharper boxer, to be honest. He can be hurt. He can be overwhelmed early, but I don't think Worley finishes him early at a high clip. Even in terms of the grappling, I think people forget, yes, Alves is Brazilian, and yes, he's got a good guillotine, but he's not a jiu-jitsu first kind of guy or a grappling first kind of guy by base. He's originally a Muay Thai kickboxer. And so, yeah, Alves could get takedowns, but I don't really think anything close to what Silva did is on the table here. Honestly, if you go through their careers, even in terms of who they've beaten, Alves has that miracle win against Colby Covington where he pulled the guillotine out of his ass, but he hasn't done really a whole lot else. Whereas Dalby, he's fought tough with a lot of fairly good competition. Ultimately, I just think Dalby's the better fighter here. He could go off the age cliff, but in my opinion, he should be a slight favorite. I think he's the better striker. And I think if he gets through the first round, the fight probably snowballs.
Yeah, so I played Alves at -120. This is another one where we're going there, Ted, which is fun because it hasn't really happened on the podcast yet. So it's good. So I guess I'll just give the Alves take now since you gave the Dalby one.
Sure.
For Alves, I feel like, of course, the age, first of all, Dalby's 38. I mean, 38 is really old, for an MMA fighter. Look, he's looked consistent lately. I haven't really seen any big decline from him, so I understand that. But I mean, the fact of the matter is you got a 32-year-old versus a 38-year-old. It's funny because when I was going into the fight, I know Dalby's age, but sometimes you just forget these things. And I'm like, let me check the age. Alves is probably older than him, right? Because I just feel like he's older than him. In my mind, he's older, but I guess Dalby's a lot older. Alves has just been fighting for a really long time, at a high level. I guess the main reason why I backed it is because I think huge amount of the finishing upside, when you take away cardio, there is a world in which third round Alves is gassed out and Dalby gets the finish. But just legitimate finishing equity, I think is massively on the Alves side, right? And sometimes I think that's a little bit underrated in MMA. Again, it's very nuanced. Like when we spoke about the philosophy, on the one hand, you really want to find a fighter where you want to be hesitant to back a fighter where, like McKinney, where they have to finish to win. If they don't finish, they're going to lose. But then you also want to really respect the finishing ability of that fighter. So there's a middle where you have to come into. And I just feel like in this fight, I don't think Alves has to finish to win. I do think he can go 3 rounds. He hasn't done it recently, but I don't think that's as much as a cardio as to kind of just lapses in judgment. Like Randy Brown he's kind of a finisher, right? So he almost had Randy Brown out of there in round 1, which is a good look in my opinion. Obviously he got finished in round 2 there. And a couple of the other fights, I don't think he's just going to completely fall off a cliff. I do think there's a world in where, he wins a decision here, of course. I just feel like the finishing ability is massive. Dalby likes to fight on the outside, right? He doesn't really like pressure fighters as much. He oftentimes is able to put pressure fighters like Means a little bit, and especially Daniel Rodriguez, on the end of his range, and he just kind of lures them into this outside kickboxing fight with the karate stance. I don't think he's going to be able to do that with Alves. I think Alves is just a bit of a lunatic. I think he's just going to walk forward and crowd Dalby. And I don't really think Dalby's going to have the fight that he wants, especially early. So I do think Alves is going to basically maximize his win condition by making sure he doesn't get stuck on the edge of Dalby's range, right? I'm predicting him to do that. So if it is a close range fight, I do think Alves is extremely more explosive. I think he's way more physical. I think he can finish on the feet. I think he can land a heavy punch on Dalby. Dalby can be overwhelmed early. I mean, that Jesse Ronson fight has aged really, really badly. PEDs or whatever, I don't know. It's aged terribly. I do think he can be overwhelmed early. I think Alves has the advantage in basically, I think Alves has the advantage in power. I think he has the advantage in the jiu-jitsu, in the wrestling, everything, really. I think he can take him down, finish him on the mat. I think he can sub him on the mat. And I think he can finish him on the feet. So, and if he doesn't finish him, I still feel like he's going to win the first round. So then it's like, I'm pretty confident in saying he's going to win the first round. You know, I feel fairly confident unless he makes a mistake. So then you've got 2 rounds as to where, you know, he's already got 1 round in the bag. So I like the bet for that reason. The main issue I have with Alves is that he's just really inconsistent and like you can't really trust him. So it's not that his skill set's poor. It's not that he lacks in any specific MMA skill set. I just think he's extremely inconsistent and like a little bit stupid. He makes poor mistakes on the mat sometimes. And sometimes he just blows his wad, blows his gas tank when he doesn't really need to. So I think it's just more of an IQ and a stupidity thing, you know, all respect to Alves, more than it is an MMA skill set thing. So look, maybe this is one of the fights where he does show that poor fight IQ and he doesn't live up to what I think he can be. But maybe it's not. And I guess we'll say, I don't know if you have any rebuttals on what I said there, but that's my take for Alves.
No, I mean, I broadly agree with everything you're saying there. I think, I guess for me, like the 2 fights that I just cannot get out of my head with Alves are the fight with Krause, which just like, you know, the truth is, you know, James Krause was a decent fighter, but like him getting out kickboxed by Krause the way he did was just very alarming to me. And then his last fight, to be honest, I mean, look, I can forgive getting nuked out by Wells like that. I don't think is that big of a deal. Wells is a big hitter, but I just felt like he was not reacting well to anything coming his way for that entire fight. And look, it was 2 years ago, but it just seemed like he was getting hurt by everything. He seemed uncomfortable. And that may just be like, to your point, you know, Dalby does hang on the outside. It may just be because Wells came at him. Like Dalby's obviously not going to come for him and bite the mouthpiece, you know? But I don't know. It like made me like really nervous about him. You know, it actually made me think that Dalby might have more finishing equity than he normally does. Cause I just felt like he was reacting like horribly to everything. Like Wells threw at him.
Don't you think Wells is one of the biggest hitters in the division?
Yeah, I do. I certainly think, again, I think the KO is forgivable. It's everything in between though, you know, but I mean, I could be overblowing it. That's certainly possible. I don't know.
I feel you completely. I mean, it's kind of weird because like I can kind of see your side, you can kind of see my side. Maybe we should just stay away, but you know, I think it's more down because like Dalby is so consistent in what he does. Like Dalby never really makes bad. He can be overwhelmed and stuff, but he never really makes bad mistakes, or he usually always fights well. You know what you're getting. Whereas Alves, you do not know what you're getting, right? And usually I don't like to back those fighters, but you know I feel like he's got some advantages. So we'll see, man. But it's been good chatting to you, bro. I appreciate it. Like I said, John is one of the most consistent guys in the MMA game when it comes to podcasting, at least. I know you got your weekly podcast, but please shout out anything you want to now because the floor is yours, my friend. Whatever you want to say.
Yeah, James, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Always love talking fights with you. Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at MMA Fawkes, FAWKES. Anybody ever wants to chat fights, want to ask me anything, I'm always down to chat. I love talking the sport. I have my podcast every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm actually going to hop over there in a bit. My YouTube channel, The Club and Sub Podcast. Once again, thanks for having me on, James. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome, man. We'll do it again in the future. Good luck this weekend.
Sounds good.
Bye. That was John, MMA Fawkes. I need to ask him what MMA Fawkes means, you know. Could MMA Fawkes like MMA fucks? Like I know them Americans say that. MMA fucks, you know, you fuck, something like that. Or maybe he's talking about Fawkes from Harry Potter, you know. I like Harry Potter, so it's the Phoenix from Harry Potter. I wonder what that is. But yeah, man, we're going head to head. I like Hill. He likes Glover. I like Alves. He likes Dalby. So one of us is going to be wrong. One of us is going to be right. Maybe we go one apiece. I don't know. We'll see. So the next guest I've got here, his name is Big Steve. So he doesn't have a massive social media presence right now, but he does this full time. And I always have respect for people doing this game full time because I know how stressful it is. So yeah, man, I wanted to bring him on because I think more full timers should be bigger than they are. It's not all about the content at the end of the day. You know, the best gamblers in the world don't make content. They don't have a YouTube channel. You know what I mean? The best gamblers in the world don't. So it's not all about the content. But he does have content. He has a weekly podcast, which I'm sure he'll speak about at the end of the fight breakdowns. Hopefully we disagree on a few things because that's always makes it for a better stream. So Big Steve, how you doing, mate?
Hello, brother. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm doing well, mate. How's it going? You looking forward to this card?
100%, mate. 100%. First pay-per-view. Maybe not the most amazing card for betting, but there's always spots, mate. I thought the same thing last week. Ended up being quite solid. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, we've spoke a little bit about on the DMs, and I actually like this card for betting. You don't like it as much. I like the last card as well. So maybe I'm just a degenerate and I like to play every single card. But we'll see how it goes. It went all right for me last week, so we'll see how it goes this week. One thing I did want to ask you, man, because I've been asking each one of my guests like 1 or 2 questions before we break down the fights, right? And something I wanted to ask you is because you're full-time, you've gone full-time with MMA gambling. How did you make that decision to go full-time? And do you have any advice for, any listeners? I'm sure there's a few people listening right now that do want to go full-time. Do you have any advice for them? Because, for example, when I went full-time, it was a little bit easy for me. It wasn't that risky just because I'd already won a lot of money from MMA gambling. So I had a lot of money to work with, not only in my bankroll, but I just also had a pool of money to fall back on whether anything went wrong. I'm quite risky anyway. I probably would have went full-time without it, but it wasn't that risky for me. I also had a couple of other income streams, so it wasn't that risky. But do you have any advice, when to go full-time, things to know before you go full-time, that sort of stuff that may help my audience?
That's a good question, man. Yeah, it's a interesting story. Obviously, this is the 6th year that I'm officially gambling now, and it's been in my mind for a while. Obviously, the first few years, you're betting $100 units, and it's a bit of fun on the side. You're losing more than you're winning. And then, things start getting a little bit serious. Just the personality that I have, it's like, if I'm doing this every single week, why not be good at it? It's just what I do. So yeah, I started doing notes, the general progression of taping, just doing more and more, improving.
Yeah.
If you're not improving, even after 5 years, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And it was in my mind, 3-4 years as I'm, 500, 600 units, 30,000 a year on the side of a normal job. I'm like, can I do this one day? I'm one of those guys that never liked my full-time job, no matter what it is, bouncing around from this and that. Doesn't matter if I make 100,000 a year. I was selling cars. I was an assistant manager as a salesman, and the money just didn't make me any happier. It's like, do I want to be a salesman for the rest of my life? I'd rather just be when COVID happened and I was at home. I was like, I wish that was actually one of the big things. My profit went through the roof because now I'm at home 24/7 and all I'm doing is taping fights and I'm making more of my money. I'm like, you know what? I feel like the more time I tape, the more money I make, which is common sense, right? So I was like, how much money can I make if I just commit to this full time? Like could be double, triple.
Yeah.
And then just like a lot of things in my life, I kind of didn't have the balls to take the leap of faith. And then I lost my job because of COVID, and here we are. I was kind of forced into it. There's a few things that I was forced into in my life, and I was kind of putting away for like a year or 2 years, and then it made me do it. So I'm kind of, COVID in a way is one of the best things that happened to me because I haven't looked back, and my boss actually offered me my job back, and I said, no, thank you. I'm kind of doing something else that I love now. And, started in November. First year has gone by. I'm not living on the streets. So yeah, only up from here. Hopefully a few more passive incomes and doing this podcast, which hasn't even been a year, and yeah, see how we go, man, with the content.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. That's a good story, and that's how it goes. I think a lot of people, in terms of being risk averse, I'm pretty risky, and that's why probably I'm a good gambler, right? Because I am very risky and I do take risks, and you have to be to be a good gambler. You also have to be disciplined. But like you said, you're not homeless. You've been doing it for a year. People think taking a leap in anything in life, they're going to be homeless within a year. You find the way, what I mean? We're men at the end of the day. We find the way. You're not going to be homeless. Even if you didn't earn money from gambling, you'd be able to get a part-time job or do something. So I feel like taking that leap of faith is the best thing to do in your life. Obviously, you had it with COVID. And that's something else that I thought of when you mentioned that story. You said COVID, you was at home all the time and your profits went through the roof. That's something I tell every gambler when they want to get into MMA gambling specifically. They ask me, what can I do to make me a better gambler? And I say to them, just get immersed in the sport, immerse yourself in the sport. If you really want to do it full time, if you really want to earn some real money, you have to be watching all the fights, watch the regional scene, go and train MMA, go to your local gym. I just feel like getting immersed in the sport, is always going to make you a much better gambler. And, you're testament to that since you were stuck at home, you had nothing to do, and your profits went through the roof, So thanks for sharing that story. I'm sure a lot of people can take a lot from that, especially if they're aspiring to go full time. But without further ado, we should speak about UFC 283 now, because that's what everyone's here for. Is there any fight specifically you want to talk about, or shall I set it off?
I've got 2 fights that I've played. I know I don't have too much conviction on a lot of this card, but I will have something by the end of the week. I was going to do Paul Craig and Johnny Walker, but a few people have chatted about that. So I reckon I'll do. No one's talked about Daniel Marcos, Simon Oliveira, right?
No, I got a play on that as well, so I'm keen to hear your thoughts.
I know that might be a good chance to go head to head, just mix it up a little bit. So I'll talk about that. So someone I really respect, told me they played Oliveira early, so I kind of looked into it, kind of nice and quick. I like to do it nice and quick. Thanks to the big break, I kind of got ahead on the taping, which I usually don't. I have this mental block about going ahead, and I like to do every single fight first and then move on. Maybe that's a problem. And I looked into it, and first reaction was I probably wouldn't be playing Oliveira at juice odds. I do know he loves his guillotine to a fault. He'd rather just fall to his back, even if he fails 6 times in a row at it. Kind of a bit like me with my jiu-jitsu game as well, but working on it. And he just keeps going for it, and quite hittable, quite wild. Obviously, had a split decision on Contender. And it's like, is this guy really worth the juice? And then you kind of tape it, and obviously, Daniel Marcos coming off the regional Peruvian scene. When I taped him for Contender, it's like, oh man, this is one of those typical South American regional scene fighters that as soon as he gets to the Contender or UFC, he's just going to get caught out with a massive level of competition. But I think he took about 3 years off, and I think he moved to America to train. And
he did, yeah.
There was a big difference there. You could see it. But even in that fight, he fought Lewis, who I really don't rate Brandon Lewis. And I think his level of competition is quite low in the regionals. He's got a nice 6-2 record. But when you tape him, for Contender, you can see that, he's barely beating some of these low-level guys, and he's getting wobbled all over the place. He's fighting low-level in low organizations. And so obviously, Marcos did do what he had to do, impressed. He wobbled him almost every fight. He did cardio die really bad in round 3, which, you could attribute it to the layoff. You could attribute it to the nerves. But yeah, he's just did what he had to do, taking a step up. He's still 29. Probably a lot more improvement to be done. Who knows? But is he gonna gas out in UFC in his debut again? Maybe some more nerves. I know a lot of people do perform well in Contender. They just have a whole new set of nerves again in the UFC. It's a completely different beast. Plus, this is in Brazil. The crowd. This is no COVID times. This is going to be full stadium, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong. You can let me know. And Oliveira, man, despite all these holes, hittable, over aggressive, throwing spinning back fists and jumping knees, etc., etc. He'll fight for your money. Incredible durability. I went back. Sometimes when I need extra confirmation, I watch every single fight available. I understand some people can't do that. That's the beauty of being full-time. I do nothing but tape if I need to. And even the fight that he lost, he was like a 10-5 guy when Oliveira was like 3-0. And even then, he had a spinning back elbow, kind of like the Jiri Reyes fight. And he just ate it clean on the jaw, and then he had a knee from the clinch, and then he kind of stumbled a bit, fell down, and then he was just up in rounds 2 and 3, pressuring the guy, dropping himself. So the guy will fight for your money. If Marcos is kicking him, maybe Teep kicking him, staying on the outside, outpointing him, Oliveira is going to keep coming, man. He's going to be throwing, he's going to be pressuring. He mixes in takedowns. If Marcos maybe tries to go for a takedown himself, that guillotine is always live. So yeah, I think I see Marcos is a popular dog, and I understand it. Like I said, there's a lot of holes in Oliveira's game, but I just had this inkling in my gut that this could still be a levels fight, And even in his debut, he fought Tony Gravely of all people, never had any chance of being finished. Yeah, he got held down a bit, but Tony Gravely does that to people. And once he fails the guillotine, he just gets back up and starts pouring it on, on Gravely. Marcos is not going to have that here. A lot of his regional Peruvian tape is just holding people against the cage. If he gets a bit too reckless with it, there's a guillotine there too. So yeah, I feel like I do have a bit of money on Oliveira's early line, $1.67, which is 60% implied. And I'm probably going to keep it. It might look like a square play in hindsight, just because of all the holes that I mentioned. But yeah, I'm probably going to keep it. Maybe I'm forcing it due to a lack of plays on the card. But we'll see. Maybe I'll reduce. But I think it could also be a good live bet fight as well. If Marcos is doing well, as he starts to get tired, Oliveira is going to bring it on and turn on the pressure.
Yeah, so that's a good breakdown. I agree with a lot of what you said. You're just talking facts about Oliveira. He is a dog. He will walk forward. He does have a lot of weapons. Marcos did gas. A lot of things you said just categorically true. I'm actually on the Marcos side, though. So like someone tipped you off to Oliveira. I don't know if you saw my announcements, but I brought on 2 new handicappers at Lucrative MMA just to help me tape fights, someone to bounce idea off, stuff like that. Muddy Oracle and one of my mates from, he's not on social media or anything. And both of those guys said, hey, Daniel Marcos, good dog here. So I've gone and had a look at it, and I actually agree. So I think Marcos, skill for skill he's better than Oliveira. Look, jiu-jitsu is definitely not as good as jiu-jitsu. He's not dangerous on the ground, in my opinion. He's got decent wrestling. I think he's kind of strong. I do think he can get takedowns. But on the mat, I do expect Oliveira to be, submission, attacking, stuff like that. I don't think Marcos has much for him in the jiu-jitsu. But Oliveira, he's the type of fighter where he looks good on the feet, but that's just because he throws everything. He just throws the kitchen sink at you. Throw heavy front kicks up the middle, which is exactly what Marcos will do as well. They both got a really good front kick. So I'll be interested to see, whose front kick lands. But Oliveira is going to throw, he's a Muay Thai type fighter, right? So he throws all 8 limbs. He'll throw the knees, he'll throw both knees, he'll throw head kicks, spinning kicks. He'll throw wide punches, all of this stuff. Whereas Marcos is completely different. I think he's a way more technical striker. I think he can set traps much better. I think he can counter much better. And when you got a fighter who's just extremely wild like Oliveira, on the one hand, that's going to be good because you can catch people off guard. But then on the other hand, it could be bad because you can be countered by a fighter who's just way more technical. And I do think Marcos is going to be able to see a lot of those strikes coming. In my opinion, Marcos's range management is extremely good. I haven't really seen him get hit clean, even on the regional scene. He'll get hit clean once and he'll instantly change range and no one will be able to hit him with combos. So I think Marcos is going to be on the back foot for most of the fight, which isn't great, but I think he's going to be countering. I think he's going to be landing heavy shots to the body. I think he can land his front kick up the middle. I think his calf kick is really good as well. And I honestly think he can get takedowns here. I don't think Oliveira has great takedown defense. The one thing I do worry about is Oliveira is going to be pressuring forward. I do suspect at some point in the fight, the pressure is going to be too much. He's not going to be able to counter for 15 minutes. He's not Wonder Boy. So I do think the pressure is going to get too much. He's going to need to clinch him up against the cage and or takedown. If he does go for a takedown, I don't know whether he's well-versed enough to stay out of the guillotine because it was very dangerous against Gravely. About 4 times he had it locked in. And I had a bet on Gravely in that fight. And I was actually worried because every time he got in the guillotine, I was like, Jesus Christ, man, he's going to tap him out. And Gravely was like a decent favorite there, like minus 180 or something. So, he definitely impressed me against Gravely, but Gravely is not an educated striker on the feet. He hits hard, but he's very meat and potatoes. Marcos is way more technical on the feet. I think the 3-year layoff has done him good. I think he looked way better coming back. I expect improvements from him. So the only worry I have about this fight is that Oliveira is just way too much of a dog for him. He's got way too much cardio and he just breaks him. But skill for skill, I don't think he's going to win the fight. So I suspect Marcos to win 2 out of 3 rounds. He may gas in the 3rd round. I'm banking on him not getting finished. He's an underdog, plus 140. The line's moved a little bit now, but I bet better plus 140. In my opinion, I got the better fighter, apart from maybe the finishing jiu-jitsu and the cardio, which are big intangibles, but I got the better fighter for plus 140 in my opinion, so I took it. So we'll see, man. We're going head-to-head. You got a better line than it's currently at, so you beat the line a little bit there, but we'll see how it goes, man. Hopefully I'll beat you on that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch at a current line.
Okay, you wouldn't play at the current line. Do you have any rebuttals to anything I said, like in terms of you disagree with what I said, or?
No, it's hard to disagree with too much. I mean, you spitting facts. It's all standard knowledge. Your stuff. And that's the risk. There's risk on both sides of this play. The only thing I maybe disagree is a strong word. It's just I don't know if Marcos is the better fighter. You could argue that, he looked like it. It looked more technical in his Contender Series fight. But even that fight, that's the best opponent he's faced. I need to see more, Like, let's say, I know a lot of people are saying that Oliveira's the Jose Alde split decision, which I just watched it again right before. I don't think that was a split. They're saying that was a bit of a red flag. I think Jose Alde would have been Marcos' best win. Yeah, he's beat Castaneda and Gustavo Lopez on the regionals. They were both in the UFC. So he's a good boxer, and Oliveira dug deep. So I agree. He could come out there and look better because, again, it's even more of a layoff training in America. He's just getting better and better and better. But I would just like to see the Marcos. The reason I've played Oliveira is I've seen Oliveira fight Farias on the regionals in ACB, the 7-time world champion. So at least I know one guy's proven. Marcos, I'm still yet to see it other than him outstriking someone like Lewis, which could have been a regional fight in America, really. I think they were pretty generous to bring Lewis back onto contender again.
No,
I agree with everything.
Level of competition easily on Oliveira. This is one of those fights, and I won't spend any more time on it, but this is one of those fights where, like, I'll just back the dog in this fight. Anyone at plus 140 above, I would just back it, just because there's positives on both sides. But something that you've definitely got going with you is just the cardio, the output, and the dogness, and that is often underrated in MMA. I mean, you want someone who's going to fight for your money. You know that as a gambler, it's just such a good feeling going in where you know that this guy's never going to give up. He's never going to quit. Like, he's going to keep on coming forward. And when you see someone like Marcos Gas in the third round, I understand why you play it, man. But we'll see how it goes. It's going to be a good fight to kick off the card. Anyway, I believe. So yeah, we'll break down one more fight, man. Is there anything that you want to speak about, or should I give you one?
Yeah, I'll finish it off with hopefully a quicker breakdown. Gregory Rodriguez, Bruno Ferreira. Obviously a bit of a juice line. Yeah. You happy with that one, mate? Should I do that one?
Yeah, no, do that one. I got a lot to say, or a little bit to say about that one.
No, it's perfect then. I don't know if we'll be head-to-head on this. I don't really have a money line play. If anything, it'll be a dog or pass for me for Bruno Ferreira. Yeah. Rodriguez is an animal. I think he would have beaten Tavares if the fight didn't fall out and he would have got a ranking. I think he deserves it. I think he should have had a ranking a lot earlier, just due to the people he's fought in the UFC. They obviously didn't streamline him as quick as some of the others, but he's getting there, I reckon. I think this is a bit of a dangerous matchup, man. Bruno Ferreira, Robocop does have some chin issues. It's no secret, He does have amazing recoverability and, heart. Whenever you hurt him, he just sees red and just insists on coming back even more aggressive. There's no, clinching and backing up with Rodriguez. He just starts swinging. It's almost got him knocked out. Not really almost got him knocked out against Marquez, but there were so many big hooks that Marquez missed as they started brawling. He could have just stayed patient and knocked them out even, less dangerously. Yeah. But yeah, even the Chitty fight, he just comes out for war, gets busted up, gets hurt, and he just broke Chitty. But if anyone's going to knock him out again, it's Bruno Ferreira, man. This guy, obviously, very easy to tape his whole career. Nothing's gone over 1.5 rounds. Obviously, very low level of competition. Aliu on Contender Series was his best opponent. Aliu's decent. He fought on Brave. And obviously Cage Warriors won in like 30 seconds by knockout against Webb, who was the next champion. The main thing with this fight is, man, Ferreira is so fluid. He's so fluid, and he throws those big hooks. And when he hits anyone, obviously his nickname's the Hulk. He puts anyone out. And Aliu was a very durable guy. And, he's got that typical, he's Italian, Albanian, typical walkhead. You just can't put him out. I've never even seen him hurt on the regionals when I was taping him for Contender. And he was just put out, by Ferreira. And the other thing is Ferreira, he looks to come in, obviously he's got very small reach. He's stocky. And I think that might be a problem here because Gregory throws down the middle round 1-2s and he's got big reach. He's very technical. He's very fast. I think Rodriguez can intercept him as he's trying to close distance with a 1-2, potentially put him out. And if Ferreira somehow, blitzes in and ducks under and throws a 1-2, that could put out Rodriguez. The other thing is he's got amazing ground and pound. I see some people saying he might not be able to take Rodriguez down. I agree with that. But Rodriguez loves to take the back, and he falls off the back a lot. So if that happens, like he's literally done it with everyone. Marquez, Petrosian, he's a world champion jiu-jitsu guy, but he just takes the back and he just can't really finish or hold on to it. If you watch his, what's his fight in LFA? Can't find the guy now. What's his name? Tana Saraceno. He just went, I'll probably butcher that name. He just had him and he had his back and he kept falling off and he was on his back for the first time in his career. And he had some ground and pound shots. It turned into a scramble heavy grappling fight. That's another way Bruno Ferreira can, he just needs 1 or 2 hammer fists and he's putting people out cold, right? Yeah. He's just, so it's one of those volatile fights. Dog or pass for me. I would not touch Rodriguez no matter how good I think he is at these odds, just because there's always that level, that chance of him getting sparked, and he's fighting an insanely powerful guy with nothing to lose. So I've played the juice on the under 1.5 here, $1.60. As this would, if I was talking about the Walker fight, it would have been like 2 fights that I played the under 1.5s, and I really hate under 1.5, so it would have been my would have been a funny thing. But as juicy as it is, I think he could have been more juiced. I think it could have been like 75%. As I mentioned, Bruno Ferreira never went over 1.5. Knocked out a very durable guy in his last one. Gregory Rodriguez knocking out people that are also very durable. Marquez, he's not really interested in going to decision. If he gets hurt, he's just going to turn that on even more and potentially put himself at more risk of getting knocked out. So yeah, that's my play here. If I lose it, because for some reason I'm happy with that, but I just think this could look hindsight, 80% play.
Yeah, it's not going over 1.5. I agree with you. I haven't played it, but when you talk about the fights that are favored to end inside a distance, like big juice odds, like Glover Teixeira, Jamal Hill, Rodriguez Ferreira, Almeida Abdurakhimov, McKinney Bonfim. I mean, honestly, I think this fight is probably the most lock, to go under 1.5. I actually played Bruno Ferreira. I played him at plus 250. I'm going to play his round one prop at plus 600. At the end of the day, man, someone said on the chat, MMA Prodigy, Robocop proven he has a good chin. After that shitty fight, how do you question his chin? Look, you don't question his recoverability, maybe. You don't question his heart. You most certainly question his chin. I mean, the dude was getting knocked all over the gaff by Jun-Young Park, who is not a powerful puncher whatsoever. And Jordan Williams knocked him out, who really shouldn't be knocking him out. Chidi hurt him. I mean, the guy doesn't have a good chin. He has really, really good recoverability, and he has an amazing heart, but his chin... Robocop's one of these fighters, right, who's going to get beat by fighters that he just shouldn't lose to just because of his chin. So, like, in what world should Robocop be getting knocked out by Jordan Williams? That's insane. Imagine if they fought today and that fight had never happened. What are you lining Robocop? You're lining him minus 600. You know what I mean? Minus 500. So he's the type of fighter where he is going to lose against these fighters who you're like, who was that guy? Jordan who? And this is the same type of guy, Bruno Ferreira. Going to be like, Bruno, who, plus 300? He knocked out Robocop. What the fuck? So, look, I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm obviously predicting Robocop to win in round one, win inside the distance. I do think he is much better. Jiu-jitsu upside, boxing upside, everything upside, right? Apart from power. But Bruno Ferreira, he's going to come in. He's going to throw bombs. Robocop's going to oblige. It's going to be a swinging contest. How can you not play a plus 250 in a swinging contest? Okay, if you want more juice, just play the Bruno knockout. I think that's like plus free. Plus, look, Ferreira TKO plus 450 on DraftKings, plus 385. It's almost impossible to not play that. Round 1 KO is plus 850. I think I'm going to play that. 850 for round 1 KO. So I don't have anything to say about this fight. They're going to swing in the middle and someone's going down. I think it's going to be Ferreira, but I think Ferreira's going down, but I bet on Ferreira to put Robocop down. So we'll see, man. I do think you're under 1.5 cashes. Ferreira KO round 1, 850. Neds has got that. I think Lab Brooks, you're not interested in that, Steve.
Oh, I 100% am, mate. I just didn't get a chance to look at it. Obviously, in Australia, all I have on Neds was the over/under and like no specific props yet. But at 850, yeah, that's going to get $100 for me. Because
just a little 0.1 or something.
Yeah, 100%. That's a lot of value on his most common win condition. Maybe rounds 1 and 2 if you want to be extra safe. Maybe when Rodriguez gasses a little bit. But yeah. One is most likely. I'll be honest.
That's it, man. All right. Listen, thanks for coming on, brother. I'm going to bring the next guest in now, but I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story about getting into gambling, going full time and that. The floor's yours, man. Anything you want to shout out, please shout out now. I know you got a weekly podcast. Anything you want to say, just say it now.
Of course, man. First, I want to say thanks for bringing me on. It was a pleasure. I've got a lot of podcasts this year lined up, and you were the first one to actually officially bring me on. So thank you very much for that. Another full-time guy. It's probably a good thing to start it off with you. I'll just plug my podcast. I've always wanted to talk to people about fights. I made my name on Sherdog. And again, another thing I had no balls to do, and I just started doing the podcast. So if anyone's interested in some full-time analysis, kind of like James's, it's Big Brain MMA Podcast. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify. Follow me on Twitter, big_Steve MMA. That's my logo in the corner if you come across it. But that's it. I post my picks on Sherdog. I post my picks on Twitter. I talk about all the fights on Big Brain MMA, and it's all free. So I want to help the community. 4 years ago, I didn't really have anyone to talk about fights. I just had to scurry around forums and stuff. So I would like to help out people that are starting out just to make more money against the bookies, of course.
Good stuff, man. Look at Steve giving back already. All right, thanks a lot, my brother. I appreciate that. We'll do this again sometime in the future. Good luck on the weekend.
Thanks, mate. You're a legend. Likewise.
Bye, mate. That was Big Steve. And yeah, MMA Prodigy saying you should have linked these guys in the description. I definitely should have. And I'm going to do that after. And I'll put all their Twitters up. I'm going to repost it on Twitter. I'm going to post all the guests and stuff like that so you can follow them. So now, without further ado, we got the man himself, Luke from Sparring with Reality. Shout out to Luke, someone I respect a lot. Just like John Stargarian, you know, I know him from the Club and Sub podcast initially. And I think that just like John, he's a very sharp mind in the game, probably one of the sharpest in the game. So how you doing, Luke? How are you, bro?
Let's go, bro. Let's go, bro. Happy to be on the show. I think it's a great idea. You know, like I said, got a little bit of the Z Fair Play podcast. I was one of the staples back on the Fair Play podcast. So happy to chop it up with you, bro.
Yeah, I tried to get Z on, by the way. Like, I'm not stealing his show now. First of all, it's good to debate. It's good fun anyway. But I tried to get him on. I wanted to get him on as like the first guest to, like, you know, give me the blessing to do the Fair Play style guest rolling in and out. But he couldn't make it, so it is what it is. Hopefully he comes back this year. I like your setup, bro. Your setup in the back's sick. I haven't seen that before. Are they signed gloves or are they just gloves? They're signed, right?
Yeah, they're signed. I'm just like a huge memorabilia mark. I have been since I was like a kid. It's just kind of been one of my things that like I like collecting stuff, you know, getting stuff signed and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of my little shrine, you know, in the back.
So is Joe Jua the one in the middle, I assume, right?
She's actually down there somewhere. She's actually.
Have you got her? You have her? Do you have her?
I do. Yeah.
That's legendary, bro. You need to get me a Zara Fern one, man. Send it over here to New Zealand.
No, bro, I already told you. I asked you when your birthday was. You know, the UFC's got a nice little $35 shirt. Probably got to pay $10 for shipping. You know, I'll send it your way, bro.
Absolute bargain, bro. That should be $350 at least, bro. I appreciate that, man. So look, I've been asking all my guests like one question, you know, before we get into the fights and stuff. And something that I've heard you speak about a little bit in your breakdowns, and also we've spoke about this, I think maybe with Barcelos, a couple of other fighters in the DMs, because we speak about fights every now and then. I want to speak to you about trap lines, right? We speak about this a lot. I think trap lines, like if anyone doesn't know what a trap line is, the actual definition of a trap line is like where the sports books specifically keep a line or open a line or set the line at a specific number so you bet on it because they have inside information or they believe the other team's going to win. That is like the official definition, right? I think in MMA, sometimes it's just used like, you know, you say trap by the number and stuff like that. You don't actually mean a trap line. In MMA, I know trap lines are definitely real in some sports, right? I think that's a fact. I don't know if they are in MMA, like the bookies actually set a line just so you bet on it. I don't have enough information to say that they have inside information and they keep the line at a specific price. But I want to speak to you about trap lines a little bit. When you use the term, are you actually saying the bookies are setting the lines so you bet them? Or are you just saying that there may be illusion of value on Barcelos plus 600, for example?
I think what they're doing is that they are shading, and actually you probably see it more from the offshores than you would from any sort of like major retailer or even Vegas. Honestly, you see it actually a lot within Bet Online. They will shade, especially closer, I would say within like 48 hours of fight time specifically. They'll sit there, they will shade things higher to entice you on the dog. They'll go sometimes 50, 60, 70 cents over market average because they're trying to get people to take that bite. They're trying to get people to take that bite. And we don't have to get too deep into this, but my point, at least in terms of like trap by the number spot, where it's like there is probably value on the dog, but someone still wins the fight at a high clip. So it's like, how much are you willing to, you know, invest? It was kind of with that with Umar and Barcelos last week, even though I thought that result was very interesting and very non-predictive, at least in terms of how it happened. Definitely. But I think there was some kind of like sentiment there, and we saw some definite shading up, and people might call me crazy, you know, because, you know, Umar's going to be the next champion. But hindsight 2020, I do think like they do that. They try to get you into these trap lines. So as a gambler, what you need to do is be cognizant of that, of them shading things up. And you also just generally sports betting principles and how you're handicapping the fights and how you're looking at and win conditions and assessments and all that stuff is there's also a lot of guys out there who can go out and win more competitive fights at a high clip. And it's something that I didn't really realize like earlier on in my betting career. And that burned me a ton of money. Brad Tavares actually is a guy who's a great example of that over the years where he's had some pretty chalky lines, but he's a guy who's going to go out there and win a 29-28 fight at a pretty high clip, right? You know, so you just have to be careful and understand these things because it's not, this game is in black and white. You know that we're just living in a sea of gray. So there's no blueprint on how to do this. There's no right way to do this. You can do it 10,000 different ways, but just be careful.
Yeah, that's what I said. You know, when I first started making content on YouTube, one of the first things I ever said, you know, was like a fighter may win a competitive fight 80% of the time, so they should be minus 400. Skill set for skill set, they're not minus 400, but they're going to win this decision 80% of the time, so they should be minus 400. And then I saw a lot of people start repeating it, and everyone says it, and it's very true. But there's another side to that coin to say like judges are a bit crazy, and doesn't matter if it is a close fight, even if they win, they might not get the judge's decision. So do you really want to lay minus 400? And like you said, it's a sea of gray. There's lots to it. But yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what you said there. So let's speak about UFC 283 because I've spoke about a decent amount of fights on this card. Is there anything you want to speak about specifically? Because I've gone through, you know, most of the fights. There's a few we haven't touched on. Is there anything you wanted to speak on?
I think there's actually probably one fight. I haven't been able to catch much of the stream because I got off work just a little bit ago. Had to take the puppy to the park. But have you guys touched on Andrade Murphy at all?
No. Let's speak about that because I'll just say I don't have a big read on that fight at all, honestly. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. You know, to see if you can open up some doors in my mind. What do you think of that fight?
So I think actually one of the sneakiest, maybe it's not like quote unquote sneaky, but more so I just say sneaky because I don't think many people have talked about it, but the under at plus money, I think is a pretty decent look this week. You know, people talk about the historic durability of Lauren Murphy, a girl who's definitely came along, you know, in the latter part of her career, mid 30s, late 30s, Glover Teixeira, you know, in some capacity. I can't take anything away from the girl. But I think you also have to contextualize a lot of things with Lauren Murphy as well. I mean, she did get a title shot off of beating Joanne Wood, which, you know, might be one of the easier roads to the title at the end of the day. And you also have to look at the amount of strikes that Lauren Murphy has eaten in recent years too. 104 against Andrea Lee, 123 against Joanne Wood, 98 against Shevchenko, 85 against Miesha Tate. Like she's taking a ton and just a ridiculous amount of shots. And the interesting thing with Andrade is you can't really like assess Andrade through any sort of conventional wisdom because there's very few. I don't think there's really any girl out there like Andrade. Like there just isn't. She's going to come forward. She's going to sling heavies. She's going to dig the body. She's got good cardio. She lands over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. She lands over 6 significant strikes per 15 minutes. Both of those at over 50% accuracy clips. She's got good cardio. She's fought nothing but elite girls pretty much through the better part of her career. In my general take on the under is that given how much Murphy has gotten hit, once again, I don't think this girl's a cupcake. I don't think she's a quitter. I'm not saying that, but in a girl like Andrade who fights the way she does, with how much Murphy is getting hit, I don't think Lauren Murphy is going to have an answer for the pressure that's coming in from Andrade in this fight. Like I said, she just hasn't fought anybody like that. People might say that Shevchenko, you know, all right, well, why didn't Shevchenko finish her earlier? Completely different style dynamic between both girls. And actually, if you look at Shevchenko is not a pure power threat. She really never has been. No. She's more of an outside point fight sniper type of thing, you know, has the head kick over Jessica Eye, but she has multiple ground and pound based finishes, but she's never been a big pure power threat in terms of her hands. Jessica Andrade, in the purest sense of the word, is a female with legitimate power at this weight class. And I just don't think Lauren Murphy has the defensive capabilities to keep a girl like Andrade at bay in this fight. Like I said, Andrade is going to come forward for better force. I understand Andrade gets hit a bunch, but Lauren Murphy's shown no power capability. She's not out wrestling Andrade. She's not out grappling Andrade. So, and a girl who's just going to come forward and throw a ridiculous amount of strikes, I don't see how Lauren Murphy really actually holds up under that. I think this fight honestly could look very similar to the Andrade Calvillo fight. So to give me plus money on an under here, because like I said, I think the historics, people are relying on Lauren Murphy's tough, but they're not contextualizing the matchup that she's fighting Andrade, right? And so if you really dig further deep into it and look at a few more things, the under should not be plus money in this fight. I think it's a sneaky good angle for this card.
So, yeah, I completely understand. I mean, when I taped this fight, it was like, okay, Jessica's minus 400. Like, I left it kind of late because I'm like, what? I mean, the under and overs a pick 'em. You know, before taping, on first glance, it's like, what angle I'm going to have here? You know what I mean? The bookies are split 50-50 on over and under. Obviously, Andrade should win. She's minus 400. Then when I taped it, I'm like, I'm sitting through tape and I'm like, I mean, yeah, okay, like what's going to happen? I don't know. I mean, Jessica's obviously going to put it on her. She's going to put her up against the back of the cage. She's going to hurt her. Lauren's going to shoot a couple of takedowns. Probably Jess is going to stuff them. I mean, she's going to hit her hard. Is she going to knock her out? For me, it's just like, I don't know. I don't have much data on whether to say Murphy's going to get knocked out. I mean, the only one time she's got knocked out, if I'm correct, is against Valentina, right? And the Valentina one was like in the 4th round, and she just caught her weirdly on the side of the head, and then she hit her with like 50 shots. You know, it was memed a little bit. She just went gear, 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 gear. You know, like that step forward, that 1990s MMA striking. You know what I mean? Like kick. Fucking box fit striking, you know, where you just punch one
Rock'em
like that.
sock'em robots.
Yeah, like I don't know if you guys have box fit over in the America, but it's like people go to the gym and they train boxing, but it's not boxing. It's just like cardio. It's like cardio boxing. They have it all the gyms. All the girls do it at the gyms. It looked like that, right? She just punched forward and she hit her about 50 times. So I can't really say Murphy had a bad chin, because she got knocked out. She just got hit weirdly, and then Valentina capitalized because she's a really good fighter. It just comes down to whether she can take the shots or not. I don't really have much data to say she's going to or she's not going to. So for me, I can't really get involved. You know, I completely understand it because it's almost a guarantee Jessica's going to hit her with big shots. And if she's going to hit her with big shots, why isn't she going to go down? But obviously, you can tell I don't have much to say about this fight. I'm not passionate at all, but for me, it's just more of like, I don't know Lauren Murphy's toughness getting hit by big shots because there's just not much to go on in women's MMA. There's not many big hitters in women's MMA. So you can't really judge girls' chins that much. You know what I mean? It's like in men's MMA, there's a lot of big hitters. So we know if Gregory Rodriguez has a bad chin. We know if Francis Ngannou has a bad chin. We know fighters that have good chins and bad chins because they have often fought fighters that hit hard. You know, but in women's MMA, I mean, I'm on Lauren Murphy's record now. This is who she's fought. Miesha Tate. This is who she's fought. Miesha Tate, Valentina Shevchenko, Joanne Wood, Lily Shakarova, Roxanne Modafferi, Andrea Lee, Mara Barella, Sarge Eubanks. I mean, no one hits hard. Sarge maybe hits a little bit hard. I mean, nobody hits hard. So it's very hard to say whether a fighter has a really good chin or not, right? Because Jessica Andrade, she finishes most girls, but she has gone to a decision before. You know, she gone to a decision, I remember, against Angela Hill, who now we know has an amazing chin. She has a really, really good chin from MMA, right? But who else she gone to decision with? Rose Namajunas. Namajunas has a decent chin. Other than that, Tisha Torres. I mean, it's just hard. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's very hard to know whether a fighter has a good chin in women's MMA, you know, especially at flyweight, you know, at bantamweight or featherweight. So for me, it's to stay away. But I mean, if you just go back and look at Jessica Andrade's record, I mean, she's rarely going to a decision. You know, she went to a decision 4 fights in a row in 2017, but that was against tough fighters. You're talking about Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Angela Hill, Claudia Gadelha. You know, these fighters don't really get finished. So Most of her fights go under. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight goes under. Obviously, it's probably going to come on the Andrade side. I would say to you, just because I would love to play this under because she always goes under. Is there anything on the Murphy side in terms of tape which you can point me to that if I watch it, I look at it and go, okay, she's probably getting knocked out here? Or is it more of the fact that she's probably going to get hit and you're just banking on her going down?
Yeah, it's completely defense related because I referenced those striking numbers before. She is getting hit the amount of time she's getting hit by girls who are volume-based strikers.
Yeah.
Who have no power. But and
Okay.
she's getting hit at sub 50% implied, or I'm sorry, like sub 50% in terms of general striking defense against girls who are just volume-based strikers who tend to play either lip of the pocket or outside base games. That's just not how Andrade fights. Like, once again, I'm right there with you, bro, that there isn't like this large sample size of data of Murphy getting knocked out. I get that. I'm a huge sample size guy. I love my sample size, but I think every matchup is unique. And I think this is a very unique matchup where I'm not even saying that Andrade is going to knock her out cold necessarily, but we've seen Andrade hurt girls with body shots. And I referenced the Calvillo fight because she didn't put Calvillo out cold, but it's just the attritional. She didn't know what to do when she was getting flurried on. She got hurt. She didn't know how to recover. She couldn't shoot a takedown. And she was in this small little box. Like, she just didn't know what to do. And that's what Andrade does to girls. And I think that's what she's going to do here. So I'm not even saying that Andrade needs to knock her out cold. I think an attritional standing TKO here is completely in play as well, which is not something I'm going to predict very often, but based on the dynamic of this fight, I don't think Lauren Murphy is going to have an answer for the offense of Andrade.
Yeah, like, I completely understand. You know, the more you speak about it, the more I want to play it, just because Jessica is an absolute animal. You know, anytime you get plus money under, but I don't know. I'll probably stay off. I got a lot of bets already. But look, let's touch on one more fight. I have to do this one real quick because I do have the guests waiting. So is there anything you wanted to speak about specifically?
I think Lazez is a live dog this week. I think it's probably one of the more interesting fights of the card. I'm as big of a Bonfim guy as most people are. I think the guy actually has a pretty good ceiling in the UFC. But I think Lazez is pretty good as well. And I think there are aspects to his style that are going to give Bonfim some issues. You know, Bonfim's base boxer. I know he has 10 submissions, which we can touch on in 2 seconds. But he's a guy who's also predicated on pressure, volume, hand speed. And I think a guy like Lazez is a dude who can disrupt that and actually has shown really good durability. People reference the Worley Alves fight. It's like, dude, he got kicked in the liver. Like, do people remember the body shot that Jose Aldo landed on Jeremy Stevens? You hit somebody in the liver, they're going down. Jeremy Stevens is one of the toughest motherfuckers to ever grace the UFC's octagon. He's only been knocked out like twice. Like, dude, if you hit somebody in the right spot in the liver, they're going down. So this narrative that Lazez is now fragile, I think, is complete bullshit. I'm not saying he can't get knocked out here. That's not my point. But I'm saying, like, historicity-wise, I don't think that's fair to say at this point. And so you have boxer versus kickboxer. I think Lazez is a guy who's big. He's fast as well, who has a ton of diverse tools, check knees, check hooks, high kicks, very mobile, very powerful, 75% knockout rate, roughly around there. And I think his takedown defense has actually been pretty good too, really, outside of getting grinded out by Eldarov back in the day. But he was actually able to pop up a ton of times. And what I will say about that Eldarov guy, that dude is a combat sambo world champion who could fight in the UFC right now, whose only loss is to Khabib. Right. And we're talking like 2019. So if people are using that as a reference point, not even really relevant because this Bonfim guy is actually not a very good wrestler. And I think if you actually look at the submissions that Bonfim has hit in recent years, they're very unique scenarios, right? Like, he grabs a guy's neck standing, rear naked choke, falls back. One dude slips off a kick. He grabs a Darce. Another one, he gets put in a really, really tight guillotine, but the other guy has no concept of using his legs with the guillotine. So Bonfim is able to scoot around past, and the guy essentially Von Flues himself. So the grappling perspective from Bonfim what I've seen is that he's an opportunistic guy. Do I think he's a phenomenal pure submission grappler in the terms of in the sense of the word? Not from what I've seen. And like I said, I don't think it's going to be easy to take Lazzez down. I haven't seen any bad grappling components from him. He slipped down a kick against Palatnikov back in the day, got his back taken. What did he do? He reversed position in 20 seconds and proceeded to knock Palatnikov out on the ground. So my ultimate point is I think it's a big step up in competition as well. In comparison to the guys that Bonfim has fought, I think this fight should be lined much more competitively. Like I said, the last thing I'll say is, though, I like this Bonfim kid, though. Don't get it twisted. I think he's good. I think he's got a good ceiling, but I think people are not giving Lazzez enough credit because I think the style dynamic of this fight leads it to, or it should be lined more competitively than it is.
Yeah, I completely understand. I feel like Lazzez at plus 155, whatever it is probably the play. I'm staying away just because I actually rate Bonfim quite a bit. I feel like he has to prove it to us a little bit, but I don't think that he can't prove it to us. And so I kind of just want to see a little bit more about him, a little bit more about his game at this top level before I go ahead and fade him or bet on him. Also, what I like about Bonfim, because you made the case for Lazzez, and I said this to Narco as well, I like Bonfim. I think his boxing is really good. A lot of people are saying it's just good. I think it's actually great. I think his boxing is great. I think he sets traps really well. I like how he goes to the body. I also don't think we know that much about Lazzez, even though he's fought so many minutes. I mean, I saw the Eldorov fight, 25 minutes. I saw the Razak fight, 15, and then Ange Lusa, 15 minutes. I think his UFC run doesn't show us much about him. I mean, the Razak fight, it shows us he's got a good chin, and it shows us that he can keep composed. But he shows us that he can be backed up against the cage. But Razak gassed after 3-4 minutes, right? So I don't really take too much from that. I mean, apart from what I've said. And then the Wally Alves fight, that wasn't a good look in my opinion. I mean, he got completely overwhelmed, couldn't get Wally off him. Fair enough, Wally's very explosive and stuff like that, especially early. Got hit in the bottom, got hit in the ribs. Who knows? It could have cracked the rib, could have hit the liver. We don't know. So we're going to give him a pass, but we still take it into account, right? We don't just completely ignore that it happened. So that's a weird one. And then the other fight, Ange Lusa, in my opinion, not UFC level. I think he's really, really tough, and I think he has good cardio. He may win some fights on cardio and toughness, but not via skill set. So in my opinion, that was a showcase fight for Lazzez. Kind of easy fight for him. I don't think that tells us much about him. So I just don't really know if Lazzez is weak to the body. I don't really know how he's going to deal with the pressure of someone like Bonfim who can set traps. So for those reasons, I'm just going to stay away. But I do think Lazzez is the side. So if you do bet him, good luck, because I think that you're probably making the right bet. But I just don't want to be fading someone who I really respect and someone who I think can hit the top 20 of the division. Where I don't think Lazzez can hit the top 20 of the division. Even if he was 25 years old, I don't think he can. Whereas I do think Bonfim can. So for that reason as well, it's kind of like I'm capping in his upside, which sometimes you shouldn't do, but you can pass. You don't have to always bet. You can just pass. So for me, I'm just going to watch the fight as a fan. I think it's going to be a great fight. But yeah, man, listen, it's been good having you. I can always chat fights with you. We'll have to do this again sometime where we don't have any time restrictions and that. But the floor's yours right now, my man. I know you just moved over to Daily Fan. You can plug that, plug anything you want. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, thanks, dude. It's been awesome. I'll have to catch the other boys on the stream as well. Like James said, moved over to dailyfanmma.com this past year from my Patreon. So that's where I'm putting up all my bets, content, full card breakdowns, prop article, parlay article, podcast, all that fun stuff over there. So if you are looking for another handicapper in the space, be sure to check me out. Obviously, James is doing his own thing, so I don't want to sit there and take anything away from him as well. But we're all sitting here trying to make money at the end of the day and break down these fights. And yeah, dude, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, that's it, man. Listen, all ships rise with the tide. I'm not, look, whatever. You're a handicapper. I'm a handicapper. We both got our own services. I don't care, mate. I think you're a good guy, and I like talking fights with you. So I'll put you in front of my audience anytime. Thanks for chatting, bro. Good luck on this weekend, unless we're going head to head, and we'll definitely do this again soon.
Thanks, dude. Peace.
Yeah, bro. Okay, that was Luke from Sparring with Reality. Shout out to Luke. Always like chatting fights with him. And without further ado, because he's been waiting, I'm a little bit tarty. I think they call it in America. I'm a little bit tarty today, so apologies for that. We've got the MMA media member, best friend of Sean Strickland, the man who humanizes all of the fighters. This is Alex Bahunin. How are you, mate? I think you're on mute, Alex.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, just thank you for asking me. And I'm good.
Good stuff, man. We haven't spoke that much on the DMs, but I noticed you follow me. I follow you, as does most people in the MMA gambling circles, because we always like to get the inside scoop, on the athletes and stuff like that. So I do appreciate you coming on. Sorry, I'm a little bit late today. You're my 8th guest, so sometimes I've never done these panel shows before. If one guest is late by 3 minutes, and then it pushes, if every guest is late by 2 or 3 minutes, it's like a 20-minute gap. So apologies for that, but we've got you here now. What I've been doing is I've been asking before we break down the fights, I've been asking every one of my guests like 1 or 2 questions. And obviously you provide a lot of entertainment to us on Twitter, specifically with the humanizing athlete segment, right? And I'm sure you get asked on every single interview you go about the humanizing athlete segment. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, you probably do know. You might not know the name. It's where Alex asks a fighter 15, 20 questions or something. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? And he posts it up on Twitter. So probably most people know what I'm talking about now. I did want to specifically ask you about one. It's the Shavkat Rakhmonov one. And you already know why I'm asking it, right? Because you're laughing. This one kind of went viral because you asked him what his favorite animal was, and he said horse. And then you said what was his favorite food, and he said horse meat. So I'm curious to know, did you realize that was kind of crazy when you asked him on the spot, or did you not realize until it started going viral and went a bit crazy?
I do so many of them that I did not catch it at first, and then when the first quote tweet was like, whoa, what the hell, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna go crazy. Yeah, and man, that one is by far my biggest one. It went viral. It was there's people that I have no idea, they saw it in Russia, they saw it all over the world, and they were sending me. I was just like, what the hell? So yeah, it was it was nuts. It was funny. The funny thing is that he's only answered 7 of the 20 questions. So before his next fight, hopefully I'll be able to get him again, and he can give me a rundown of everything else.
Yeah, that was an epic moment on Twitter, and people still use that today. I think I quote tweeted one of your one with Umar Nurmagomedov, because he said he liked The Gentleman was his favorite film, and I'm English, and The Gentleman is a Guy Ritchie British gangster film, right? So I love all the English gangster films and that because I'm from London, and I just thought it was super funny that Umar loved The Gentleman, like some dude from Dagestan loved The Gentleman, and I quote tweeted that. And one of the comments was, but this isn't as good as the Shavkat one. So that one is just legendary. And I think it will be legendary forever. So, man, we'll look, I really want to speak to you about a lot more of this stuff in terms of, the best interviews and the guys you like fighting and the humanizing athletes. We have to do that again, sometime.
For sure.
We'll break down the fights now. But just quickly, one thing I did want to know, just personally, just selfishly, when you ask these guys their favorite color and stuff, do you DM them, or are you in front of them, or how does it work? Because I don't actually know.
So it's kind of a mix. If the fighter wants to come on camera and do it, then they'll do it that way. Yeah. If not, then I'll send it through a DM. Sometimes I'll send it through an email. Sometimes they will record it and do it. Sometimes I'll catch them at the gym. It all really depends. Yeah, it all depends. So yeah, but it's the thing that is just cool is they're so happy to do it, because they get asked so much about their fight. So when it's a little bit different, that's my whole that's what makes me smile, is just them. Yeah, the one that always stumps them is favorite movie and their favorite song. It always goes they have a hard time coming up with that.
Bro, one favorite song is so tough, man. One out of all the songs, I couldn't imagine it, But I have this picture in my head of you standing in front of Shavkat, and you're like, "What's your favorite animal?" And he's like, "Horse." what's your favorite food? Horse meat. You know, and you're like, Jesus Christ, you know, writing it down in your pad. That's like what I have in my head, man. But anyway, let's get onto these fights, man. So this is a big pay-per-view card in Brazil, first pay-per-view of the year. So look, there's a lot of fights we can speak about. Is there anyone specifically you wanted to talk about, or should I rattle one off?
Have you talked about the McKinney versus Bonfim fight yet?
Just briefly, but we can definitely touch on it because we didn't speak too much in depth. What's your thoughts on that one?
Man, as much as I love Terrence, and you know, there is a chance that he comes out and just gives Bonfim everything he can handle.
Yeah,
I'm kind of leaning Bonfim to get it done.
So do you think that Bonfim needs to? I mean, most fighters. I spoke to Ben Davis earlier, and one thing I said to him was like, if Terrence McKinney was fighting Francis Ngannou, yeah, I would probably play Terrence McKinney to win in round one, because Terrence McKinney in round one is an absolute nutter. He can knock out anyone on the planet. So are you of the opinion that Bonfim's going to be smart, weather the storm, stay out of range, clinch him, make him tired, and when Terrence is tired, like he usually has been after 3 or 4 minutes, then he's going to take him out that way?
Yes, I think Bonfim's going to be able to survive. That's all he really needs to do is just survive. Yeah. He can lose the first round 10-6, right? Like he can get his ass kicked that first round and then come back and get McKinney. It just, the whole thing is, can he survive? And if you look at tape, like, has he fought someone that's as strong and as athletic as McKinney? I don't know, right? Like, I was looking through his resume. There's no one really that talented. Plus, it's his UFC debut in Brazil on the same card as his brother. Like, it's a very, very, very tough ask for this debut. Yeah. But there's just something about me that I just think he'll be able to survive that first round and come back. And I don't know if it'll be TKO or sub. I don't think it's going to go 15 minutes.
No.
But I think he'll be able to finish McKinney if he survives.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion on the fight about who's going to win. But in reality, like you said, all he needs to do is survive, you know. One thing I will say is that he fought Renato Moicano, who's obviously the best fighter he's ever fought, right? And that was back in 2014. It was a long time ago. It was on the regional scene, Jungle Fight, which is a good promotion over there. My girl Amanda Lemos comes from that promotion, so I got a lot of love for that promotion. She's my favorite fighter. And he got finished in round one in that fight, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to happen again, but if Moicano's finishing you in round one, I feel like McKinney, who is like a round one boss, he could definitely finish you in round one. You know, Moicano's not really a round one guy. This was like, you're talking 10 years ago almost, so we don't take too much from it. But yeah, man, it's going to be a great fight. I don't think the fight goes 15 minutes. I mean, I was going to play the under 1.5 rounds. Obviously, we're gamblers here. I'm a gambler. I was going to play that under 1.5 rounds. I didn't really end up getting to the window just because I think Bonfim's super technical and he is smart. He's going to know. We know about McKinney now. The cat's out of the bag. Everyone knows McKinney goes crazy in that first round. Once upon a time, people didn't know that. I had a bet on Terrence McKinney to win in round one at plus 900 against Fares Siem because no one knew Terrence McKinney was a round one madman. But now everyone knows. He's never going to be plus 900 in round one again, right? So obviously, if everyone knows, so does Bonfim, you know, and his camp. So they're going to know, look, all you need to do is weather the storm for 3-4 minutes and you probably win the fight. So there is a world in which Bonfim's smart, grapples him, clinches him up against the cage. He looks like a solid guy, you know, he's fairly short, you know, he's decently short, 5'8" for the division. I feel like, you know, he could survive. In my opinion, it's more of a lottery ticket. It's more of like flipping a coin. And that's what the bookies believe as well, because it's like almost minus 110. So we'll see how it goes, man.
Bonfim in round two, I'm looking at it's plus 700.
Yeah, that's solid.
Right?
That's good. I mean, McKinney was finished twice, right? Once in round two by Sean Woodson and once in round one by Drew Dober. I think Drew Dober just fought fire with fire. Bonfim's not going to do that. So although McKinney could gas at the end of round one, I doubt it. I feel like it's more going to be McKinney gassing, surviving, and Bonfim coming on in round two. So honestly, you just piqued my interest with that 700. I'm trying to keep it smart this year. I'm trying to not go on crazy round prop bets plus 1,000. But I mean, bump him round 2 is as good as a bet you're going to get, really. So plus 700.
What's crazy is I live in Vegas now, but I lived in California for 30 years, and it's illegal to bet in California, and I never did offshore booking. I just was never around it. So now that I live in Vegas, I've been kind of wetting my feet a little bit, just because I know that I know myself, and I know that it could get really dangerous really fast with sports betting, and I've kind of felt it already. Like I'm kind of it's very scary. But what I've been doing, I mean, I don't have enough balls to lay a bunch of money on fights yet. So what I really like to do is I like to do parlays, but only bet $5-10.
Yeah.
But 5, 6, 7 leg parlays. That's kind of my thing right now.
I think that's the way everybody gets into gambling, because when you start gambling, after being in the industry for me 10 years, now I bet big on fights, singular bets, right? But when I first got involved, you're betting I used to watch football all the time because I'm English, right? So I used to bet 10 teams to win. You very rarely win, but it's very exciting, And then as the years progress, you get better, you get smarter, you understand that, laying specific bets is usually better than big parlays. But everyone gambles differently, and it's just for fun, So if you do that for fun, before I get you out of it, one thing I'm going to ask then, just because you just said that, give us a 7-leg parlay. Who are you going to be backing this weekend? Just rattle it off quickly. You don't have to think too much about it, but just seven winners who you think's going to win. And you know what? I'm going to chuck $25 on it on myself, and we're going to see if it comes in. If it comes in, I'll donate it to a charity of your choice. How about that? We'll do that. That's a bit of fun.
Okay. All right, I'll do that. So how many leg? 7?
Yeah, 7, 6, 7, about that.
All right. Let's do this. Let's go. Josiane Nunes.
Okay.
Warley Alves. Jolton Almeida.
Yeah.
Thiago Moises.
Yeah.
Gregory Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Jessica Andrade.
One more.
I mean, it's got to be good Gilbert Burns. So it's all heavy favorites.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so that's coming in at plus 497. So not bad, We're talking about 5 to 1. So I put $25 on it. It's going to come back at about $125. So what? Yeah, we'll.
What if you throw Paul Craig in there?
That's going to bump it up a lot. So we'll take Paul Craig's best line, plus 170. So it turns from a plus 500 into a plus 1,500. So now we're talking about a decent amount. Now we're talking about I don't know. I'm not good at 1,500. We're talking about it's over $350. So that's better. So we'll do that one. All right, we'll do that one. Stick with that one. $25. I'm actually betting against a couple of those guys. So I want it to win for charity, but I want it to lose for my bankroll. So we'll see how it goes.
Totally.
Yeah. But listen, man, it's been great chatting with you. Is there any other fights you want to speak about? Because my other guest is not in here yet. We can speak about one more fight if you're down.
Yeah. What do you think about the RoboCop versus the Hulk fight?
Is that his nickname, the Hulk? He looks like a Hulk.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, he looks like a Hulk. Yeah, this is a good fight. Me personally, I've actually bet on the Hulk, so because he's a massive underdog, Alex. Yeah, so he's plus. Let me have a look now. I bet him at plus 250, and he's still plus 250. And the reason I bet it is because, a lot of people ask me, you're not too into gambling, like you just told me, right? You're kind of just starting off, but a lot of people ask me about gambling. How do you win at gambling, right? And I could write a book on it, but the one thing I always say to people who don't bet much is that these are the one biggest difference between recreational gamblers and professional gamblers. We don't bet on who we think is going to win the fight. Oftentimes, we bet on who we think is going to lose the fight. We bet on where we see inefficiencies in the market. So, for example, every single betting line has a probability behind it, a win probability, right? So, plus 250 is basically the sports book's way of saying that they think this guy is going to win the fight about 30% of the time, right? So I think that Bruno Ferreira lands a kill shot a little bit more than 30% of the time. So for that reason, I'm actually betting on Bruno Ferreira. I only think he's going to land it 35% of the time. So I'm actually still predicting RoboCop to win, right? Because I'm saying 65 RoboCop, 35 Ferreira. So I'm not predicting Ferreira to win. If you was going to say if you asked me, gun to my head, who's going to win this fight, I'm going to say Gregory Rodriguez. But I think the Hulk, he hits so hard. And Gregory Rodriguez, we've seen time and time again that the guy just goes in there and just has a swinging contest. You know, sometimes he has no regards for his chin, no regards for his health. He just wants to put on a show for the fans. And we love him for that. He's a crowd favorite for that. But I also love him when I'm betting against him with a guy who hits as hard as this Brazilian dude. So I'm really just playing the numbers. I'm just playing into the variance. If he gets hit once, in my opinion, he goes down. So I'm backing Ferreira, but I'm picking Rodriguez. We'll see. How do you see the fight playing out?
It's literally it's a fucking coin flip for me. I don't know. I think Gregory Rodriguez should win.
Yeah,
but he keeps his chin up when like a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like he gets rocked, and this dude throws leather. So like that's my only thing. Like Rodriguez should win, but I just don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, it's one of those like it's just iffy fights.
I feel you. I mean, what Rodriguez does bad is maybe he's a little bit wild sometimes with his defense, and he's got a bad chin. And what Bruno Ferreira does good is landing on your chin, you know? So, I mean, what he does bad is kind of plays into what he does good. So we'll see. And, you know, another thing about gambling, if you're calling it a coin flip, Alex, what everyone, you know, on my side of Twitter would say is you have to bet Bruno Ferreira at plus 250 if you're saying it's a coin flip, because a coin flip is 50-50, but plus 250 is not 50-50. That's 28% or something. So we'll see, man. Maybe you chuck a bit on it, or we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think I will. One last thing before you let me go. Who is your lock of the night?
Okay, lock of the night. I don't know if you say that as a reference to what's been going on Twitter over the holidays, or you're completely out of the space and you don't even know what that means. But what I will say is, let me just have a look. Let me just have a look at the card. So,
if you were going to bet your fucking house on one fighter, who would it be?
All right. If I was going to bet the mortgage and I just wanted the fight if I just wanted to win, I would bet on Gilbert Burns. I really think he's just going to, I think he's going to finish Magny. I don't think Magny has anything for him. I mean, how does a Magny win look? He's going to have to jab him from the outside for 15 minutes. I mean, Gilbert Burns is not going to let him do that. Burns hits harder on the feet. In my opinion, he's probably better on the feet, and he's definitely better on the mat. I think he actually finishes Neil Magny in this spot in a second round submission or something. So if I'm betting my mortgage on it, I don't want it to go to the judges, because I'm not giving those judges any chance to take away my house, you know. So I want someone who's going to finish, and I do think Gilbert Burns finishes this weekend. So I'll throw the question back at you. Who's your lock of the night?
Gelton Almeida. I think he goes in there and steamrolls.
I forgot about him. Can I change it?
Yeah. I think he goes in there and absolutely just demolishes this dude and sends him packing out outside of the UFC.
There's a reason why the UFC took this fight 5 times, right?
If the Shamil guy makes it to the fucking fight, because he might pull out tomorrow, you know? Like,
yeah, we'll see. And everyone's parlays are going to be one leg down. But listen, Alex, it's been real good chatting with you, man. First time we've done it. Hopefully we can do it again in the future. Everybody check out Alex on Twitter. Humanizing athletes, one of the best things ever to hit the Twitter scene. The floor is yours, man. If there's anything you want to plug or talk about, please do now. Other than that, I really appreciate you coming on.
No, man. Thank you so much for having me. Whenever you want me back, just let me know. I'd love to do it. Awesome. Yeah, just check out my Humanizing Athletes, Alex Behunin, on all social media, and my byline is at MMA Mania. So hit me up.
Cool. All right, awesome. Thanks a lot, Alex, man. Good luck on the weekend. See you in the future.
Absolutely.
Bye, mate. That was Alex Behunin. Lovely guy, man. First time I've spoke to him, but you can tell he's a genuine guy. That humanizing athletes is just, it goes viral every single week. So funny. Last week, I said this on the stream, but last week, Umar Nurmagomedov, his favorite film was The Gentleman, a Guy Ritchie British gangster film. I just found that hilarious. I read it. I was like, what the fuck? Has Alex mixed this up with like Arnold Allen or Nathaniel Wood or something? Some dude from Dagestan, you know, wrestles bears, loves Guy Ritchie gangster films, English ones anyway. All right, next, last but not least, I wanted to finish the stream with a bang. This is a guy who I've been watching for a long time. Definitely was an inspiration when I first made content on YouTube. He's been doing this for a long time, gambling in the MMA scene, also making content. You will all know him, Dan Levy from Best Fight Picks, Half the Battle. How are you, mate?
Doing absolutely phenomenal, James Blissett. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing well, brother. This is me 3.5 hours in, or 3 hours, 5 minutes in. So I've only gone one piss, so I've done well, man. I need to go again soon. But this has been a really good fun time, man. I don't know if you've caught a lot of the stream, but everyone's been super beneficial to the stream. And as I said, I wanted to finish off with a bang. You know, I really respect you. You're an OG in the game. I make no you know, I'm not hiding anything when I say that. I've been saying it since I first come in the game. You definitely inspired me to get on YouTube and just, you know, be a voice in the scene. So thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. And first of all, like I've been doing with all of my guests, I kind of want to ask you a question before we get into the fights. And I don't know how long you got, but you're the last guest. So, I mean, we can go on for however long you want, you know, but this is the question I wrote down for you. You've been in the game for a long time, like I said, right? OG in the game. You've been gambling for a long time, gambling on MMA. You know MMA inside out. You know the old school fighters, new school fighters. I know you've been speaking about Shogun a lot this week, which we should probably touch on that just for the banter. But I want to know, you know, one advice from you, one piece of advice that you can give to new gamblers coming out in the game, right? One piece of advice that has served you well over the last 10 years or however long you've been gambling for.
I mean, it's hard to just pin it down to one because the most common advice that anybody gives is the discipline and the money management. So when you hear those terms so much, people just kind of overlook them. Like it's not that big of a deal, but it's a huge deal. I'd say that my best attribute is I think I'm the most disciplined bettor. Probably on planet Earth. Like if I don't want to bet an event, I'm gonna sit the event out. Like if I literally don't think there's value on anything, I'm not gonna force a bet. I'm not gonna go bet on sports that I don't know shit about. I'm not gonna go force a 10-team parlay just to have action, just to have the rush and the thrill. So I really only bet, and obviously you're not gonna be right all the time, but I just bet where I feel like, you know, maybe I have an edge here. So yeah, there's that. And then the other thing is you got to think for yourself. It's so easy to listen to my show, listen to your show, listen to Nick Kalikas, Andrew Gambis. There's a lot of sharp people in this game, but none of us have 100% hit rates. So just because I'm on something or James is on something or these other, you know, great minds are on something doesn't mean that you need to be on that side. So one thing that, you know, people were talking about earlier when you tagged us in this show that we're doing right now was, man, if all 9 of these guys are on the same side, then I got to automatically tail. And I was thinking, if all 9 of us are on the same side, you should probably fade it. You know what I'm saying? And it's not because we don't generally give out good information. It's just because you got to think for yourself. That group think shit and that, you know, the Discord circle jerks, like I'm just not a part of that, man. And again, nothing against, you know, you want to talk fights with people because you're passionate about the sport and you just love talking about fights. Like 100%. But at the end of the day, you're not placing the bets for me. I'm not placing the bets for you. So you got to think for yourself. So that's, 100%. I think that's probably the best advice, making sure that your money management is on point. And then another thing, like money management, in addition to getting the best of the line, can literally be the difference between you being in the profit and you not being in the profit. You know, obviously if your money management is on point with underdogs, you bet 2 underdogs, you bet the exact same amount on both, but only one wins, you profit. You bet 2 favorites, you know, you bet a -150 and a -200. Who cares which one of them lost? you bet them both to win one unit, and that's a losing night. So your money management, just you got to be on top of that shit like crazy.
Yeah.
And obviously, back to getting the best of the line, that can literally be the difference between a winning and losing night. Not only winning and losing night, winning and losing year, winning and losing month. Like getting the best of the line is like literally one of the most important things. And since you can't just be so fixated on one outcome of one bet, and you want to look at it as the sample size of, people are bringing up that I have a near 10-year record. Okay, 10-year record, or hundreds of bets, thousands of bets. Like if you're getting the best of the line, 9 out of 10 times, you will be on the right side of the coin. Like that's the game. Because people think about picking winners, which, don't get me wrong, I'd fucking love to pick a winner every single time, having 100% hit rate, and then really call myself best fight picks. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be right all the time. But if you can consistently get on, beat the line, not only can you guarantee yourself a profit by betting the other side, which I don't often do, but at the end of the day, we're just talking about making money. So if you can guarantee yourself money, I don't see what the issue is. Like with Umar was fucking minus 200. I know of people that put down 5K on that minus 200. He closes minus 1,200. If you wanted to just put a little bit on high only just to guarantee yourself a profit, it's there. There's going to be these, and that's like a, $10 line move or some shit. But like just on a more realistic term, like there's a bunch of 50-cent line moves that you see all the time, and you can guarantee yourself profit. But at the end of the day, if you're not into the hedging, which I'm not, try your best to get the best of the line.
Yeah, man, you touched on a lot of points there. First thing you said was that bankroll management and discipline, and you said that's extremely boring, so everyone glosses over it. And that's 100% fact. In today's society, everyone wants the magic pill. That's why people like the Liver King. I don't know if you heard of the Liver King, but he came out. He was a jack.
You mean the guy that's not on steroids?
Yeah, the guy that's 100% not on steroids. We all knew that, right? But people believed in him because he come out with this crazy ancestral tenant type thing. I don't really know much about it, but the reason I brought him up was to say the reason he had a massive following was, or one of the reasons, is because he said that you can get as big as him with this magic pill, eating liver, eating raw meat, right? But in reality, you need to jump on steroids. But if you want a good physique, you need to be consistent in the gym every single day for 5 years. And if you're a hard gainer, maybe 10 years, and also track your macros for 7 of the years. I mean, it's consistency, right? It's discipline. It's boring. And everyone wants to gloss over that these days. I spoke to Jeremy Kennedy, earlier. You obviously know a lot about Jeremy Kennedy, right? And I asked him, you've reached the pinnacle of the sport. You reached the pinnacle of the sport. What is one of the things you attribute to that? And he said consistency, right? And it's exactly the same thing as you're saying. It's boring. Consistency is not a magic pill. It's very boring. Bankroll management is boring, but it is something that will keep you on top of the game for years to come, So people have to listen to these boring things and understand they're boring for a reason, because they get told all the time, and they get told all the time for a reason because they work, right? So that's something that's definitely important in the game. And something else you touched on is discipline. And you're so disciplined because sometimes you will just pass on an event. Sometimes you will bet on one fighter on an event. And honestly, I'm not as disciplined as that. I have to be completely honest. I feel like there's value in a lot of spots. Sometimes I force value. There's not value in spots that I bet. And honestly, I mean, you can speak to this as well. We will get to the fights in a minute, guys, as well. But this is quite an interesting subject for me specifically, is because, I'm a handicapper. I have a tipster service, right? And I actually feel a little bit more pressure to be less disciplined now because people want bets. And you could probably speak to this as well, right? So I feel like I'm a human, and there probably was spots last year specifically where I may have forced it just because I want another bet for the members, because they want more bets, because they hate having one bet on a card. I don't think I ever was in a spot last week where I was like, I don't think there's value, last year, where I thought there's no value on this. I'm just going to bet it anyway. But subconsciously, when people are messaging you, any more bets? Sure, there's more bets. You must have more bets. Just subconsciously as a human, you probably do edge to that a little bit more. So something I want to follow you a little bit more on this year is just trimming the fat on my bets. I did a massive review on my 2022 year. And one of the things I was doing was betting too many prop shots, long shot odds, fighter to win in round 2, like all of this sort of stuff. And I really want to take your approach a little bit more, and and just trim down the fat on my bets, and that's something that's very important. And that's something I admire you for, because we're degenerates by nature. It's not easy to just bet one fighter on a card or pass on a card, but sometimes the cards speak on that. The cards call for that, so that's definitely true.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's such a great point, because a lot of people have heard me publicly talk about, like, one of the reasons that I hated touting was exactly the thing you're talking about. You feel like, hey, like, I only like these two spots, and let's say they both win, but it wasn't good enough because there was early adversity. And then you send out those two plays, and it's like, well, how come you're only betting on two spots on this card? And then you're getting all these people breathing down your neck. And then let's say you win 3 events in a row, and you're on a little heater, and then everyone wants to jump on your package for that 4th event. You go out there, you lose that 4th event. They didn't get to, like, benefit from what you did the last 3 events or even throughout the year. And then let's say you go on a skid and they only catch you during that skid. So it was just, I had enough, because I was going to bed stressed and I was waking up stressed. So it just took away from my process. Then you start playing it safe and you start just betting uncharacteristically. But back to the money management, even in my worst year, when I got my ass absolutely handed to me, the reason that, I was able to salvage all that was because my money management was on point. Like, I got absolutely destroyed in 2021, but I still have, like, a decent record because my money management is on point. So that's such a big deal, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's true. Like, you might go through a year where you have your best year yet, and you think you're God's gift to the earth. And the next year you push your edge. You actually only had a small edge, even though your variance, you ended up winning a lot of units. Small edge each event adds up to a lot of units, right? So you might only have a small edge, but now, because you won 100 units, 50 units, 200 units, you think you're God's gift to the earth. You push the edge next year, you're not disciplined, and you lose more money than you earned the year before. So that's why discipline's so important as well. And one of the last things you mentioned was about this group think thing, which is very true. On MMA Twitter, everybody bets the same fighter. And I actually feel good when I'm betting against the fighter everybody is on. Like last week, I bet on Roman Kopylov, and everyone bet on Pudahedi Soriano. And the more takes I saw coming on Soriano, on the one hand, I'm like, oh shit, man. Am I wrong about this? They're talking about wrestling upside. They're talking about Kopylov has no striking defense. Jesus Christ, maybe I'm wrong on this. But on the other hand, I'm like, I've seen this before. I've seen this many times. Kopylov is plus 140. Every day he's getting worse. Now he's plus 110, but everyone's becking Soriano. I think I'm on the right side here. So it's like, devil on your shoulder, the angel and the devil. And ended up being a good spot. And I do think that is important. Don't just go on what somebody says or what the whole of Twitter is saying, because oftentimes people are wrong. And like John Stargarian said, one of the ways, or one of the times you have your biggest edge is when you are actually seeing things that the market doesn't see, right? And that's one of the reasons why I want to turn Lucrative MMA into more of a syndicate, or that's what I'm trying to do this year. So I don't know if you saw my announcements, but I've brought on 2 handicappers to help me with my capping on MMA, right? Because now I've got 3 guys bouncing ideas off each other, guys that are extremely good at gambling. One guy I know from off social media, someone called Muddy Oracle, is on Twitter, and I've brought them on board. And now we're bouncing ideas off each other, and it's not just one person. So we can kind of avoid the Twitter sphere, avoid the group think. We have our own group think, but I know these guys are extremely disciplined. I can trust them, and they're extremely profitable. So I think, yeah, man, I mean, a lot of what you said is true. The group think thing, though, is definitely true. Anytime you are on the opposite of the market, and the market's specifically moving your way, I think that's a very good sign. I don't know if you've seen that as well. I asked John this. I don't know if it's just me. Have you ever seen the spot where everyone on Twitter, Bet MMA, Tapology is on one side, but the market, the line is actually moving the other way? Usually, the market is correct. This is what I feel. Have you been in the game for 10 years? Have you noticed this as being correct? Are my suspicions correct? Because,
I mean, isn't that what's happening with the Jamal Hill fight? Like, everybody's on Glover, but but Jamal's getting steamed.
I mean, hopefully, honestly, just me personally, on my Twitter, I've seen most people on Jamal Hill. And
Oh,
I'm on
really?
Jamal Hill as well. That, yeah, just me
Same
personally.
here.
And that's why I'm a little bit worried. Well, there you go. I mean, a few Jamal Hill backers here. But
Listen, just to make you feel better, I've seen some of the worst bettors I've ever seen on Glover and some of the worst bettors I've ever seen on Hill. So at the end of the day, it's going to cancel itself out. May the best man win. But back to your point, man, about how it just like, yeah, one event, okay, but it all adds up over time. And that goes back to getting the best of the line. Because if you're consistently getting the best of the line, win or lose, I mean, your profits are going to go up. And when you actually do lose, you're going to lose less. You know, if you only laid 3 units as opposed to laying 3.5 units, that might not sound like much for one bet, but those bets add up over time. That extra 0.5, that extra 0.3 that you pay the juice on, and you're not getting the best of the line on, like that shit adds up, man. So it's so goddamn important to just consistently get the best of the line. And I think the last thing, and I think I may have heard you touch on this, that I really recommend, and some people might find this like kind of arrogant, but it's not meant to be, is getting immersed in this sport. You know, I train jujitsu every day. I'm a purple belt in jujitsu, man. Like I fucking live and breathe this stuff. And not only that, you know, back in the day, sponsoring fighters, just, you know, commentating at my local show, even going to, you know, fighter gyms and sparring with the pros and just getting my ass whooped just to know what these things feel like. So, because that makes your understanding of the sport go up tenfold. Now I know what it feels like to be calf kicked. I know what, you know, I know what all this shit feels like, just not under the bright lights. But, you know, yeah, I definitely think that having some form of just intimate martial arts knowledge is going to help just what you're watching, period.
yeah, and it's funny because like there's a lot of fighters out there who are really bad at gambling, but they can see things that you potentially won't be able to see. And if you're a gambler, like a good gambler, and then you become a fighter, you don't have to be professional fighter, but as long as you know what's going on, then you can mix both worlds. You know, you're a good gambler, but you're also a decent fighter. And yeah, I definitely urge any. That's what I say to everybody asking me, "Oh, how can I, you know, become a good gambler?" First thing I say is, all right, immerse yourself in gambling content, but immerse yourself in the sport of MMA. Go and train MMA because it's only going to enhance your knowledge. I don't know whether, because you're like Alexander Volkanovski might be a terrible better. You know what I mean? He might just be like, I think, what is it, Dan Hardy? He's always clowned on Twitter because he picks the opposite of every fight or something like that, right? So there's always going to be that. But at the end of the day, Dan Hardy's going to see some things that you could use in your capping. If I had Dan Hardy next to me, I'm almost certain my profits would go up because I'm a good gambler anyway. So I know how to limit my risk, and I'm not going to bet on a minus 400 if Dan thinks he's going to win. But he can tell me a few details that I wouldn't have seen because I'm not a professional mixed martial artist, you know. So I could speak philosophy with you all day, Dan, and I'm happy to have you on last because we have a little bit more time. But let's give the people what they want, not what they need. The UFC 283 breakdown. This is a great card in Brazil. I can't wait for this card. I know you have a bit of affinity with the Brazilian fighters. So is there any fight specifically you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you what my bets are, and you can tell me which one you want me to touch on. So far, I bet Jamal Hill at minus 120 to win 2 units. I bet Warley Alves at plus 125. I risked 2 units, and currently he's minus 125. So back to getting the best of the line. You know, obviously, I'd love to win every bet, and it'd be amazing if he came out here and first round guillotine him or whatever. But even if he loses this bet, I can't, like, you know, put my head down, because when you bet something plus 125 and he's going to close minus 150, just let me do that 1,000 more times, and I know for a fact I'm going to be profitable. So those are 3. Did I say Thiago Moises already?
No.
Okay, I bet Thiago Moises minus 300 to win 1 unit. He's currently like minus 400. And then so I've bet those 3, and then I really want to bet Shogun. It's just, you know why I'm hesitant to. But I think the dude he's fighting is an absolute bum. No disrespect, just at the UFC level. I think he's fighting a guy that his fight before Contender Series got dropped by a 5'9" heavyweight. You know, his fight on Contender Series, I mean, he got outstruck, caught the guy, congrats. But now, like, this is a big pressure fight. Shogun in Brazil, you don't have any experience whatsoever. You've never fought anybody. I mean, he might just be too fast for him because he's 15 years younger, this and that. But I don't know, man. Like, if there's anybody on the roster that Shogun might still be able to beat, it's probably this guy. So I kind of want to find out at plus 185 or whatever it is. I'm just kind of hesitant because, what if he gets wobbled by a jab? What if you you flick a paper ball at his chin and he falls over? So, but people bringing up, oh, he tapped his strikes against Paul Craig. It's like, you know what Paul Craig would do to Ihor? Like, Paul Craig has finished guys in the top 5, not just one, like multiple, like finished Ankalaev, finished Jamal, finished Nikita, finished Kennedy. Like, so, I mean, yeah. I just gotta sack up and accept the fact that it's an idiot or genius play. You're gonna look like a genius if you come out here and cash on Shogun as a retirement fight at plus 180 odds against a complete nobody, and you're gonna look like an idiot if Shogun goes down to a jab, at 41 years old. So I just accept that. So that's a potential bet, and then the other 3 I've already bet.
Yeah, the Shogun one's tough, man. I think, honestly, I'm going to, like I said at the start of our chat, I'm going to exercise discipline. I'm not going to back Shogun at like 40 years old or whatever he is. I'm just going to exercise discipline on this one. I actually have a lot of bets on this card already, so I don't really want to go, I don't want to step out of the bets I've already had. I might add 1 or 2. I am actually going to add Bruno Ferreira against Gregor Rodriguez to win in round 1. Round 1 KO is like plus 900 or something, which is insane. But I did want to speak about one of the fights you have. So I'm also on Hill with you. We can speak about that fight because I know you actually know Jamal Hill personally. So we touch on that a little bit. But I'm also on Wally Alves with you. And just as like a little piece of fun, me and you are both going head to head with John Stargarian of the Club and Sub podcast, because he's on Glover and he's also on Alves' opponent, Dalby. So yeah, so one of us is going to be wrong. Hopefully we can beat him on that one. I did want to speak to you about Moises, right? Because no one spoke about Moises yet. And
did you freeze? Or you think
I want you to shed some light on this, because obviously you bet him at minus 300, right? And the only real clean advantage I can see for Moises is the level of competition, which is obviously massive, and the jiu-jitsu. But I don't have a lot of tape on this Costa guy. So I've watched like 3 of his fights, I think. And I mean, he's get taken down a couple of times, but he gets straight back up. I don't really know if Moises is going to have the wrestler advantage in this fight. I think there is a world in where it gets stuck on the feet. I'm not predicting it, but I think it may happen. And if it's on the feet, I don't know who's going to win that fight. I mean, Moises beat Bobby Green and Hernandez on the feet, right? So he's obviously good on the feet. But I also think Costa can beat him on the feet, right? I think it might be a 50-50 coin flip. So for me, I don't know if Moises is going to be able to get the fight to the ground. And so it might be a striking fight. And I'm calling it a coin flip in a striking fight. So for me, I could never lay minus 300. So I'm interested to see, if you see any other angle that I'm missing. Obviously, the level of competition and the jiu-jitsu. Why did you come to the why did you get to the betting window at minus 300 on Moises?
Yeah, I don't see it as a coin flip at all. I mean, obviously, you said the level of competition, the jiu-jitsu, that's very fair.
On the feet. I'm only saying on the feet it was a coin flip.
Yeah. I mean, I think the physicality difference is huge here. I think that for a guy that's as experienced as Costa is, who he's coming into the UFC with a respectable 19-5 record, I've been very unimpressed with some of his decision making in fights, like that fight where he's spinning back kick the dude, and the fight, it's just a couple follow-ups, it's over. And it's not that he doesn't have that killer instinct, it's just that he didn't have the IQ for that finish to materialize, and that's against a low-level opponent. Some shit like that flies in the UFC. You're letting someone off the hook, they can come back in the fight. And I think the physicality here, the difference in physicality is huge. And then also, I don't know. I just don't think this guy belongs. I think they needed someone to take it on a week short notice. Yeah. This is the guy that answered the call. And even on the feet, man, I mean, Thiago, is very defensively sound as far as I'm concerned, shells up nicely. Joel got him out of there, but you got to think, not only did so the reason I rank Moises ahead of Joel is because Joel's missed weight for every single big fight he's had. And I mean, it is an advantage. You see the size of Joel in there. And granted, Thiago could have taken down a guy with 0% takedown defense, But who knows? He was probably thinking, "Hey, I just took down Islam Makhachev my last fight. I know it didn't go my way, but what's this guy got for me?" And I think he got humbled. And then you saw how he treated his next fight, Christos Giagos, which was a step down in competition. He treated him very accordingly. And I think he's going to treat this guy accordingly too. So I lined at -400. So I took it at -300.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel you, man. A lot of those are good points. I'm predicting Moises to win. I actually think he finishes in this spot.
Same.
I was looking at the under. I was hoping they was going to give me plus. I always like to get plus. Under 2.5 rounds. I mean, I haven't really opened it market wide, but it looks like it's -120 on FanDuel. You're already exposed to the fight, right? So I don't assume you to bet the under as well. But I would like to ask you if you think there is value under 2.5 rounds at -120. And if so, are you going to be betting it? Would you bet it?
I don't know, but I think Luke brought up a really good under that I hadn't even thought of earlier in the show, the Andrade one at dog money. But the Moises one, I mean, I could see him grinding this kid out for 3 rounds. The kid's experience, he could survive, just get, even if it's possibly close on the feet and Moises, seals the rounds off with takedowns, it could be a 30-27. So I'm not trying to get cute. If he wants to play it safe, just because it's a high risk fight. No one knows who this kid is. And this kid comes out here and beats you. That's terrible for your career, man. I mean, like, you're literally either at the brink of the top 15 or you're in the top 15. Losing to a kid like this is not an option. So if he needs to play it safe, I'm all for it. And since the kid is experienced, it's not one of these random 5-0 guys coming into the UFC, who then I'd be more inclined to take the under 2.5. I'm cool with just the money line. I beat the line already by $1. I'm all good.
Yeah, good stuff, man. I mean, I think he treats him like he should treat someone coming in with no UFC experience. I mean, Moises is a mainstay. I understand that. It just, for me, just personally, everyone's got different styles. It's just too many unknowns on the Costa side in terms of the takedown defense, the jiu-jitsu, the get-up ability, that sort of stuff. It's too many unknowns for me to play any angle apart from maybe violence. But we can talk about the Andrade one if you want, just a little bit, because I'd like to hear your thoughts, because Luke brought up a good point, right? I couldn't really get any data on Lauren Murphy taking big shots. She's never really took one, right? And like I just said with Costa, I don't like unknowns. I kind of coined this term, right? And I said it earlier in the stream. In a game where we have to make lots of guessing, which is gambling, we're literally guessing. I like to make as little guesses as possible, right? Or as few guesses as possible. Andrade should knock her out. Like, she is going to land clean blows. She should knock her out. She hits so hard. But I haven't really seen Lauren Murphy rocked ever, apart from the Valentina one. And that was like side of the head. It was a weird one. She hit her with like 50 punches. So I have to guess Murphy's not going to be able to take the punishment, which is fine. It's gambling. We're getting plus money. Is there any, what's your angle on this fight in terms of how do you see it playing out? You think Andrade gets the KO? You think she can't take the physicality? How do you think it goes?
I mean, I hadn't really thought much about it just because the line is so wide until I heard him bring up that example. And the only reason I brought that up is because historically speaking, in weight classes like this, you don't often see people with knockout power. You don't often see people finishing fights. It's usually, betting, minus money on fights that you have no edge on that are going to be controversial splits. Like Ketlin and Rocky, so like here, when you have someone who one punch knocked out Karolina Kowalkiewicz, knocked out Rose with a slam, knocked out Caitlin Chukagian in the first round, knocked out Cynthia Calvillo in the first round, finished Amanda Lemos in the first round, finished Joanne Calderwood in the first round, like that's just different for women's MMA standards. And even though Lauren has historically been tough, she hasn't been in there with Bata Estaca yet, but I don't really have that, too big of an opinion on it. I haven't put any money down. It was just based off what Luke said. I thought he brought up some good points, but what I do have money on is Jamal and Worley.
Yeah. Let's talk about Jamal, man, because I know you have an affinity with Jamal. You actually know him personally. Do you want to tell us, because I don't know. I know you've tweeted about him. You've been speaking about him for years, and shout out to you because you can do a little victory lap now, man, because at the end of the day, what I like doing, one of the most things I like doing, right, is when a fighter comes into the UFC, you say they're going to be a champion, you say they're going to make it into the top 10, and they do it, you kind of just sit back and go, I told you so, I knew this guy. This is what I did with Amanda Lemos. I remember she was plus 35, plus 135 against Lavina Souza, right? And I put a lot of money on that, and that's a hilarious line. I mean, she's minus 1,000 if they line it today. So I do my little victory lap with a Lemos getting into the top 5. You can definitely do one with Jamal Hill. But I'd like to know how you know the fella, how you know Jamal Hill. And then you can talk to me about the Glover fight. Why did you bet on him?
I mean, so I first got introduced to Jamal Hill. So actually, I had seen his regional fights because, you know, he was just this up and coming prospect. So I'd heard about him, but some dude hit me up and was like, "Hey, you got to interview this up and coming guy, Jamal Hill." So this is before, you know, I think either right before his debut or right after his debut, back when he was first in the scene. So, you know, we did like an hour podcast, and then we just stayed in touch after that. Really cool guy. And, you know, very focused, very disciplined. And, you know, just, I respect him a lot. You know, like when I got my purple belt, he commented on my thing and congratulated me. And when I won a couple jiu-jitsu matches, congratulated me. So he's just always been you know, just because now he's fighting for a belt doesn't mean that now he's, you know, forgetting about people that supported him, you know. So he's just a very cool guy. But, you know, all that aside, I've been, you know, friends with guys that aren't, you know, going to win fights at the UFC level. So to me, that's just more of, I just think he's a great guy. But as far as the skills, that's a completely separate topic. And the reason why I'm so high on this guy's skills is because, well, firstly, he's got the one hitter quitter of, you know, the Francis Ngannou's, but then he's also got the output of a little guy. So when you have that combination, that's absolutely, like, it's kind of unheard of almost. And it's just because usually it's like you talk about guys being KO or bust. Well, what happens if they can't get the KO, right? Right, James? But here, when you're able to throw over 100 significant strikes like he did in his UFC debut, like, and the variety of the strikes, fights behind his jab, goes to the body, step through knees, knows how to use his length, very, very creative on the feet. And one of my favorite qualities about the great Jose Aldo, and one of the things that I think made, one of the many things I think made Jose Aldo so great, is when people used to take him down, he'd pop right back up. And I think Jamal Hill has a very, very similar quality, because a lot of the analysis I hear people talking about is they'll mention, well, in the Darko fight, he got taken down 6 times. But they failed to bring up, but he also got right back up 6 times. In the Thiago Maheta fight, he got taken down 6 times, but he popped right back up 6 times. It's not like we're seeing him getting taken down and then he's a fish out of water off his back, and, you know, he's being held down for prolonged periods of time and this and that. And then when you talk about the Paul Craig fight, what happened when Paul Craig put the triangle choke on Ankalaev with 1 second left?
Tap, tap, tap.
What happened when Paul Craig put the triangle on Kennedy with like less than a minute left?
Tap, tap, tap.
What happened when Nikita Krylov was beating the shit out of Paul Craig and then he threw the triangle on him?
Yeah, you already know.
When Paul Craig put the triangle on Jamal, Jamal was willing to let him break his arm, and then he started punching him with his broken arm. So that tells me right there that this guy is literally is willing to do whatever it takes to win the fight. So for Glover to submit him, like, he's got to put him unconscious. He's got to break his limb. He's got to ground and pound him and knock him out cold. So I know for a fact, this isn't like, you know, rest in peace to Rumble Johnson, but do you remember when Rumble Johnson would like get his back taken in fights? You know, it'd be a quick tap, it'd be over. Like, Jamal's willing to go through the fire. Jamal's willing to go through adversity. And one thing about these fights you've been seeing with Glover, which, first of all, I don't want it to sound like I'm disrespecting Glover, because Glover is a very inspirational guy. To win a belt in your 40s, I mean, to win a UFC belt, period, incredible. But to win a UFC belt in your 40s, and now you have a chance to become a 2-time world champ in your 40s, like, hey, like, dude, OG, gangster. I mean, I thought Glover was a fucking gangster 10 years ago when he was beating, you know, the top guys at his time back then, the Ryan Baders, the Rashad Evans, the Quentin Rampage Jacksons, all those guys. And for him to now still be at the top of the game at 43 years old, I mean, dude, that's absolutely unheard of. It's just that there's a lot of common themes in his fights, whether it's him getting rocked early and coming back. Jamal Hill isn't exactly the kind of guy you want to get rocked against early and come back. I mean, Jamal's not going to break. Jamal's still going to be there. I mean, if Glover can take the shots and keep coming forward, Jamal's going to keep hitting him. Jamal's not going to get discouraged. He's not going to quit like Iwan Kutalaba. He's not going to quit like Carl Roberson. And speaking of the Yuri Prohaska fight, which not only was the best fight of 2022, but possibly one of the best fights I've ever seen in all my years watching the sport. What belt you think Yuri is in jiu-jitsu? Maybe, should we say blue belt? Like maybe a blue belt?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe purple.
So purple, let's say perp, you know? I mean, Yuri was expertly using the fence to escape all the bad positions. When he was in a locked-in arm triangle, you saw that beautiful back roll he did to escape that. And I mean, I went on my show and I said, if there's one outcome that's not going to happen, it's Yuri submitting Glover. Like, we can write that off, right? And then Brett Apley was on the show with me. He's like, I don't know. He's like, you never know, and you truly never know. And I just think that how many more times at this advanced, mature age can you keep taking these shots and just have these amazing comebacks? And like, Jamal's there for war. Jamal's not just there to, you know, front run a little bit and go home. Jamal's willing, like, you got to break this guy's arm. You got to put him unconscious. You got to truly finish him. And if Glover can do that, all respect to him. But I think it's going to be the opposite. I think Jamal Hill is going to knock out Glover Teixeira and be the new UFC light heavyweight champion. And, you know, what I really am disappointed about, James, is that John Jones doesn't get to fight these guys, because one of the things that separated John Jones from the pack back when he was champion at 205 was, you know, he'd have the 10-year age advantages on these guys. He'd have the 10-inch reach advantages on these guys. He'd be 5 inches taller than every single guy he fought. So he kind of left the division right as the, you know, Jamal Hills, the Magomed Ankalaevs, the Rakic's, all these guys that can match him on physicality started coming into the division. So it was just a bummer that we never got to see them fight John Jones. But bottom line, I think that Jamal represents that new guard, and I think he becomes the champion Saturday night.
I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right, because I want to cash my ticket. You've vouched for him, said he's a lovely guy, seems down to earth. And so it'll be great to see him win the belt. If anyone has to beat Glover, hopefully I'm on the right side of it, because I don't want to see Glover lose. You know, I remember leading up to his Jan Blachowicz fight, I watched the Embeddeds. And I don't always watch them. They're really good, though, but I don't always watch them. But I had a bet on Glover in that fight. And, you know, he's such a positive guy. I just remember him dancing, singing. This is fight week, fighting for the belt. And, like, he is the positive force in his team. You know, he doesn't need positivity. He brings it. And it just makes you smile when you hear him talk, when he speaks about that. He's got videos on YouTube about mindset and personal self-improvement and that, you know, and that's what I live by, you know. So I love Glover. Unfortunately, bets don't care about your feelings. I don't give a shit about my feelings and what I love when it comes to money. And I do think Jamal Hill is going to win this fight. Something that I haven't really seen people speak about. There's a few things on Jamal Hill, you know. As I said, I've seen a lot of people on Jamal Hill, but I think Jamal Hill has elite cardio. You know, I want to hear your opinion on that, because I heard, I can't remember who it was, you know. I'm not trying to put them on blast either. When I say these words, I'm just speaking facts, right? I can't even remember the name anyway, but someone posted on Twitter that it was, if Jamal Hill doesn't finish Glover in round 1 or 2, Glover's minus 1,000. Right. And I don't know if you saw that as well, and you could shed some light on who it was, but I completely disagree with that, because I mean, I think Hill has elite cardio, and I think he has a heart of a lion. Like you said in the Paul Craig fight, he proved he has a heart of a lion. In the Thiago Santos fight, he got taken down 6 times. 5 of them was in round 3, and he got a brutal knockout in round 4. So he came back. And in round 4, after being taken down 5 times in round 3 and potentially looking a bit gassed in round 3, I will say, he looked a bit gassed. He looked a bit tired. That's why he got taken down. It wasn't because, you know, his takedown defense. It was because he looked a bit tired. He wasn't tired in round 1 or 2. But in round 4, he didn't look tired at all. Thiago was tired, actually, from trying to hold him down, and he couldn't keep him down. He didn't look tired at all. Jamal Hill was bouncing in and out of range. He literally looked like he looked in round 1, in round 4. So I think Jamal Hill has elite cardio, meaning that in this fight, if Glover takes him down early, if Glover doesn't finish him, and the fight starts on the feet next round, he can 100%. Glover can be finished in any round in this fight. Jamal Hill can get dominated on the ground for 3 rounds and get a knockout in the 4th round. I'm very confident in saying that, right? Unless Glover's just beat him to a pulp and he can't even walk, like I said earlier, Ortega Volkanovski style. So the cardio of Jamal Hill, I think that's being completely underrated. People saying that Jamal Hill's round 1 or 2 or bust. Just because he's got a lot of knockouts in round 1 or 2 doesn't mean he's round 1 or 2 or bust. It's not Terrence McKinney, right? So I think we've got a 5-round fighter here. Another thing I'll say is in that Santos fight, his takedown defense looked very, very good in round 1 and 2. Santos tried to get him down multiple times, could not get him down. He didn't even sniff a takedown in that 1st or 2nd round, right? And I feel like Glover, I don't think Glover's Daniel Cormier. Glover's not an elite wrestler. Glover's a really good wrestler, and he understands that if he gets the single or the double, he's strong enough and he's got good technique to take you down. But I don't think he's Daniel Cormier. I don't think he's a amazingly elite wrestler. And I do think Thiago Santos in round 1, with his explosiveness and his power, there is some comparables to Glover, just in terms of Thiago Santos is so much more explosive than Glover. He should really be able to get Jamal Hill down in the 1st round. He couldn't, right? So I feel like Jamal Hill early takedown defense is being a little bit underrated, and then his cardio is being underrated. So, I'd like to hear your thoughts on those, but the reason I'm backing Jamal Hill is just because of the speed, man. I mean, those things obviously, but the speed and accuracy. I think Glover's defensive speed is very poor on the feet. I don't think he has good speed. I don't think he sees shots very fast. He gets wobbled a lot. And another thing a lot of people are saying, right, is, Glover gets wobbled, but he comes back. So you can't say his chin's bad. They say the exact same thing about Gregory Rodriguez. Gregory Rodriguez gets wobbled by people who can't punch, Jun Young Park, but he comes back. So forget about it. No. If you're getting wobbled in MMA, sooner or later, you're getting knocked out in MMA, right? You can't just keep coming back. That's not how fighting works. That's not how chins work, right? So, I mean, look, we're both on the Jamal Hill side. We're just saying good things about Jamal Hill. Obviously, it's lying competitively for a reason. Glover has a very good chance of winning this fight. Level of competition, level of experience is all on Glover's side. Would I be shocked if Glover goes here, gets the takedown, and is able to dominate on top position and get a ground and pound? No, I wouldn't be shocked. I haven't seen Jamal Hill on the ground against anyone even close to Glover. And the one time I did, it was from guard and Greg subbed him, right? So I'm not like Jamal Hill's minus 400 in this spot. But those are my thoughts on the fight, man. I don't know if you have any thoughts on just because I haven't seen anyone speak about that, on Jamal Hill's cardio and, without speaking about him for 20 minutes. Do you think he is a little bit underrated?
Yeah, that's a complete bullshit myth. I mean, not only the example you gave with round 4 of Thiago, but what about round 3 against Darko? He attempted more strikes in round 3 against Darko than Woodley has his entire career. So I just think that whole myth, people like to, categorize these guys as 1st round or bust. And like one of the reasons I love Jamal so much is because he has the output of a little guy. Like that means that's like a 3-round thing. That's like a 5-round thing. That's not a 1 minute and 30-second thing. But don't get me wrong, he can also Francis Ngannou you as well. So yeah, it's just one of those things where people have hard time accepting, like they haven't seen them at this level yet, so they have a hard time accepting it. It's like I talk about, every champion was once a contender, every contender was once a prospect, and every prospect was once a regional fighter, and every regional fighter was once an amateur. So you just gotta accept that there's a chance that he comes out here and rises to the occasion and beats Glover in Brazil, and that's what I'm betting on.
Yeah, hopefully we get it done, man. So I'm going to get out of this soon. We're approaching 4 hours. Is there any last fight you want to touch on before I get you out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say why I bet on Warlley Alves. I understand Warlley Alves is a 50-50 fighter. I understand that he's unreliable. I get all that. But firstly, just speaking of the line, I bet him plus 125. He's currently minus 125. He's going to close minus 150. So I did my job as far as the line is concerned. But as far as the analysis is concerned, I mean, when you talk about the guys that Warlley beats and the guys that Warlley loses to, well, I mean, I don't think that Nick Dalby is fast, explosive, dynamic, powerful like Jeremiah Wells. I don't think that Nick Dalby is on an upwards trajectory or has the physical attributes of a Randy Brown. And I think that, this whole Worley has to be a first round guillotine or a first round knockout or he's going to lose is total bullshit. What happened the last time he fought an old guy named Sergio Moraes? He whooped on him the first 2 rounds. He finished him in the 3rd round. So, does Nick Dalby get rocked in round 1 of almost every single fight? Yes. Does Nick Dalby have shitty takedown defense? Yes. Is Nick Dalby 38 years old? Yes. So that screams to me the kind of opponent that Worley Alves can come out here and run through this guy. So at the very least, I did my part odds-wise, but I think I'm doing my part analysis-wise as well, and I think Worley Alves is going to finish Nick Dalby.
Yeah, I completely agree. I bet Alves at -120. And I mean, great line. Congrats to you for getting that line. At the end of the day, it comes down to what I cap it at and where the line is. And I cap Worley at least 60% in this spot. So at least. So there's definitely value on the -120 in my opinion. And as you said, it probably closed 150, right? So hopefully I get some good CLV there. But look, I'm not going to speak too much about this fight because we both bet on him. We can just speak about how good Worley is. But I think he's got a massive finishing edge in this fight, which has to be respected, right? I don't think he's round 1 or bust. I don't think he's round 2 or bust. I think he can win a decision. But in terms of who's going to finish who, I do think Worley Alves is way more likely to finish Dalby. I think he can take him down. I think he can finish him on the mat with ground and pound. I think he can finish him via rear naked choke, via submission. And I also think he can finish him on the feet, just like he's done to many opponents, including Munir Lezez, who's a good fighter on this card as well. Dalby's 38.
And Colby Covington.
And Colby Covington, yeah, guillotine Colby Covington. So I think he can finish any man. And yeah, as you said, I mean, Dalby last got finished by Jesse Ronson, and that has aged absolutely horrendously. PEDs or whatnot, that's aged terribly. So
I don't give a fuck what kind of steroids he was on. One doesn't simply get finished by Jesse Ronson in the UFC, period. Like death, taxes, and Jesse Ronson doesn't win UFC fights.
Yeah, well, he did, and that was against Dalby, man. So hopefully Worley can do similar or the same this weekend. But that's it, man. I'm going to wrap up now. It's been great, man. Thank you for coming on. I'm losing my speech now. I've been on for 4 hours, bro. I don't know if you've done a podcast for 4 hours before. Usually your ones go an hour, but this has been pretty draining. But it's been good because I've had a lot of different guests on, and you all bring different energies, and it's perked me up as well. So I've definitely chatted to you the longest, and that's why I wanted to bring you on last, because I wanted to pick your brain a little bit. So thanks for coming on, man. I'm sure all of my viewers already know where to find you, but if you have anything to say or to plug, please do it now.
No, I'm just grateful. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to everyone that listened. If you're interested in checking me out, my Twitter is Best Fight Picks, and my podcast, Half the Battle, available everywhere podcasts are found. Thank you again, and let's cash these bets.
Yeah, man. Good luck this weekend. Take care, Dan. Speak again soon.
Likewise. Take care.
That is it. Dan from Best Fight Picks. I like Dan. Hopefully we can do another podcast with him in the future. Maybe we speak about some philosophy, because I like breaking down fights, yeah, but I actually like speaking about the philosophy behind sports betting a little bit more, or at least 50-50. And like I said to Dan, let's break down the fights, because we need to give the people what they want, not what they need. But I know people want breakdowns of fights, but every single motherfucker and their dog. Dan had a dog as well. I meant to ask him about that. Beautiful dog. Shout out to your dog, Dan. But every motherfucker and their dog has breakdowns, fight breakdowns. So I kind of like to do things a bit different. That's just me in general. I like to do things a bit different. And I like to break down the philosophy behind fights and or philosophy behind betting on fights. So maybe in the future, I'll do a podcast where we speak purely philosophy, because it's actually what people need rather than what they want. But man, thank you everybody for being in the chat. We had like 80, 90 live viewers peak, I think. I can't remember, something like that. We got 50 viewers still in the chat. So anybody who's been with me from the start, the middle, the end, through the whole time, whatever, shout out to you guys. I'm going to shut down the show now. I really appreciate everyone being here. Genuinely, like I say, if there was no viewers, if there wasn't you guys, I wouldn't have a channel. I wouldn't make content if no one was watching it. So I really appreciate everyone being here. Like and subscribe to the channel, whatever. Helps with the YouTube algorithm, apparently. So shout out to you guys, man. This is a big, big weekend. I've got a lot of bets on this card. If you want all my official bets, I've given out loads of stuff on this podcast, and all my other content. But if you did want my official bets and predictions, you can get that from me and my other 2 handicappers in my syndicate. Go to lucrativemmabetting.com. The links are in the bio. And you know what? Just as a thanks for anybody watching live right now, there's 50 viewers in it. Anybody watching live, if you want my picks, I'm going to give you 50% off. Just send me. I'll make you a code specifically for you just as a little thanks for staying with me this long and watching my podcast, man. So hit me up in the DMs if you want that, but I'm happy to keep putting out this free content, So without carrying on, going around in the houses, just ranting for no reason, I'm going to love you and leave you now and go a piss and have some food. 4 hours deep, like Fubu said. Shout out to everybody and good luck this weekend on your bets. Let's cash these tickets and fuck the bookies.